Deposit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's presiding.
Yeah, I'm just like.
I told him he's kind of up to the side. It's like, I'm not your chair.
Give them the table.
We are in the middle of well, one, two.
Oh, yeah. I can stand right there. This thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, Hanukkah.
That's not it. I would-
I could stand. I could stand like this.
But I do.
So I wasn't given one if you do.
I was thinking that's very unique. They should be such my meeting.
I mean, I'm.
Yeah, I think we were past that. I'm not sure. You know, I'm gonna use for the house.
Yes.
It is. Begin with it. To be, I wish I could see look here so that I can see you. Summer. Yeah. Mhm. It does.
Have you guys used to reports or anything like that?
No, no, not that. No.
Oh.
Yeah, just sorry, I think Audie will read it through. Yeah, just leave it.
You guys stop me on my weekend.
I'm actually, I was like thinking about this.
Oh, yes, it's.
Yeah, he's a fun.
I want to.
That's not just. Professor Shelby, like a six, right here. Yeah. Yeah, so back to bring back the show. What's a French guy? I remember 8 years ago, there was like a bird feeder, it was like a squirrel, and in a way that it is stitched for this was it, when the squirrel was fine.
Guys, all losses 12:36. Have a good round.
Can we close the door?
I guess we'll get started. Prosecution, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning. My name is Amelia Farrar. I'm joined here at council table by my colleagues, Mr. Henry Gatto
Good morning, Your Honor.
and Mr. Sammy Fatia.
Morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
We're also joined here by federal investigator Tamara Rivera on behalf of the state of Memphis. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Defense?
Good morning. My name is Megan Mulligan, and I'm joined at council table today by Miss Jasmine Sonipar. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
And Miss Sasha Judy.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Morning.
We represent the defendant in today's case, Mr. Charlie Martin.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Okay, prosecution, retrial matters.
Yes, Your Honor, just a few. First, we'd like to invoke Rules 603 and 615 for the constructive swearing in and sequestration of all witnesses, barring party representatives. I'd just like to note that Investigator Rivera will be serving as the state of Midland's party rep today.
Defense or defendants required to present.
That's right, Your Honor.
Next, Your Honor, we've prepared a bench book with some relevant case law, stipulations, and pretrial orders. Defense counsel has seen this before trial. May my colleague approach and tender?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor.
Referring to a couple of things within that bench book. First, Your Honor, for the indictment under that first tab, the light green one. We're going to be charging the defendant with murder today, and we'll be arguing that he acted intentionally. We'll do that by arguing that he engaged in a set of actions with the goal of killing someone and that he was aware that this action could or would have that effect.
First degree.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, sounds good. That's your understanding of.
Yes, Your Honor.
Next, Your Honor, we'd like to point the court's attention to a piece of case law, Jeffries v. Polk County, that's on page 9 under the dark blue case law tab. Let me know when you're there.
Page 9, you said?
Yes.
Yes.
So what Jeffrey says is that while law enforcement officers are not experts under Rule 702, they do have specialized training and knowledge that comes with their experience as a law enforcement officer. And as such, their opinions as insofar as it relates to their training and practices of being an officer or investigation procedures are governed by Rule 701 rather than the expert standards of 702. And we just bring that up because we'll be calling one such officer today, and we expect she'll be telling us a little bit about her investigation.
Defense any caveats to that case law?
Your Honor, we just like to note for the court that that doesn't mean that Investigator Rivera's expert testimony is rendered as an expert, and that if she goes beyond her investigative capacities as in her testimony, she is still subject to Rule 702.
So no conclusion, easy thing.
If she offers an expert conclusion beyond her capacity as just a federal investigator, then yes, that's right.
Sounds good.
And next, Your Honor, I'd just like to call your attention to a stipulation in today's case, stipulation number 15. Should be under the second dark green tab.
715?
Yes, Your Honor. Stip 15 just defines exhibit 14 as a material safety data sheet for oxalic acid. And it says that forensic evidence and metadata show that this document was downloaded to the defendant's phone on January 8th, 2025 at 9:46 in the morning.
Okay, defense, any issue with that?
We agree to it, Your Honor.
And finally, Your Honor, I would just like to point the court's attention to a pretrial ruling, pretrial order number for C.
Okay.
And that just says that that either party is able to read the defendant's interrogation with Exhibit 7 onto the record without any further foundation. Of course, it's subject to admissibility issues, but no additional foundation is needed, and it can be brought onto the record at any time whatsoever.
That would come from the director's any issue then?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, sounds good.
That's our understanding as well.
Okay, sounds good.
And then finally, Your Honor, we'd just like to ask your preferences for asking permission to move around the court. Would you like us to ask for permission to approach the listening counsel, the witness, and the bench, or just state it for the record?
So stated for the record when it comes to your own witnesses, and if you're approaching your own counsel, that's totally fine. Ask for permission from the judge and the opposing counsel as well as the opposing witness. Yeah, so you can ask for permission when it comes to the witness and then us. Feel free to move towards each other.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, we're ready for trial.
Defense any pretrial matters?
Just two things, Your Honor. First, when an objection has been sustained, would you like us to move to strike or assume offending testimony is stricken?
Move straight.
Move to strike. And finally, we have a notice of intent to offer character evidence. Prosecution counsel has seen and signed this document. May my co-counsel approach and give it to you?
Yes.
Here you are, Your Honor. You're welcome.
That last trait that you listed, what does that say? I just didn't read it.
I believe it says general good character and nonviolence.
Okay, sounds good.
With that, defense is ready to go.
Good counsel. Oh, okay, it's FDA.
Here, I'm gonna put them for three down. You're gonna be. Then, it feels weird having you on the right side. You guys feel that way too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You. The mess.
So we're good with pre-trial.
Yes, yes, Your
Then, what do you see in the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed? Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury. The pain, the plan, and the poison. It's April 6th. There's no one around besides a man standing over a couple of scuba masks. He looks around to make sure that no one's watching, and once he's certain, he's holding a bottle of poison. He rips off that seal, pops open that lid, and he pours the poison into the scuba mask. That man is Charlie Martin, the defendant in today's trial. And that mask that he just poisoned belongs to Mr. Armstrong. Or die later that day. But to understand why the defendant would take such an action, we need to take a few steps back. There are 5 competitors left on the reality TV show, The Saboteurs. They've been physically competing for 2 months. But 2 of those players have been competing for much, much longer. 5 years ago, the defendant lost to Mr. Rob Armstrong. He was publicly humiliated, betrayed. And for the past 5 years, that person has been waiting for the opportunity to change their narrative. And that opportunity, that's what brings us today. Because as the prosecution, we've charged the defendant with murder for purposely causing the death of Mr. Armstrong. We also bear the burden of proof in today's case. That means that we'll prove to you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. And we're going to do that today by showing you 2 things. One, that the defendant knew that putting the poison in the mask could result in the death of Mr. Armstrong. And the poison is what ultimately caused Mr. Armstrong to drown. Today, we'll be asking you to follow 3 facts to prove that. The pain, the plan, and the poison. So first, the pain. Today, we'll be calling up the host of that reality TV show. And we expect that she'll tell you about the relationship between the defendant, Mr. Armstrong. And she'll tell you how the defendant was betrayed by Mr. Armstrong. And how that betrayal has followed the defendant around. Pushing them to make the point. Bringing us to the second fact, the plan. We'll also be calling up the leading investigator in today's case. She'll walk you through that investigation. But more importantly, she'll tell you that the defendant admitted to poisoning that mask. And she'll show you the proof of the plan the defendant took. And what you'll learn is that plan revolved around our third fact, the poison. We'll be calling up the doctor who conducted the autopsy of Mr. Armstrong. She'll walk you through what she found and how the levels of oxalic acid in Mr. Armstrong ultimately caused him to drown. Now, in a moment, the defendant's lawyers will get up here, and I'm sure they'll disagree with me on a few things. But what they'll have to admit to is that the defendant poisoned Mr. Armstrong. So if everyone in the courtroom agrees on that today, what question are we asking? What it counts is whether or not the defendant's actions or the reason that Mr. Armstrong is not with us today? We're going to answer that question. At the end of today's trial, my colleague, Mr. Patia, will get up here and he'll walk you through the pain, the plan, the poison. And he'll ask you to find the defendant guilty.
Defense, whenever you're ready.
It was the competition, not the chemical. Now, the state just got up here and he told you that Mr. Armstrong was poisoned. That a chemical called oxalic acid caused him to drown. But what if I told you that Mr. Armstrong wasn't poisoned? That the amount of oxalic acid that he ingested, well, it wasn't fatal. It wasn't even toxic. Instead, what did cause Mr. Armstrong to drown was over 2 months of tea. It's the morning of the finale. And Mr. Armstrong, he is exhausted. But the producers, they don't care. Because today is the finale. And today, they're looking for ratings to skyrocket. So they send Mr. Armstrong on his way to compete. He takes off through the forest, going through obstacle courses, climbing rope walls, crawling through mud pits. And while he's doing all of that, he's sleep deprived. But he reaches the lagoon. At that point, he's hit his limit. He's exhausted. But he puts on his oxygen mask and he dives 30 feet down. He begins to swim, but he starts to struggle. He tears off his oxygen mask and waits for the safety divers to come rescue him. But minutes go by. You can't keep him on. Drowns. He drowned because of the competition. No. So when the state charged Mr. Martin with murder, they took on a burden. They had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Martin acted purposefully, that he had the intent to kill Mr. Armstrong, and that Mr. Armstrong died as a result. Now, to show you that it was a competition, not the chemical, we'll ask you to pay attention to 3 things: the conditions, the carelessness, and the consequences. So let's start with the conditions. The set designer of the saboteurs will tell you how the challenges were designed to push competitors to their limit. At the show, they knew Mr. Armstrong was exhausted, but they cleared him to compete anyways. That brings me to carelessness. Why did this happen? A medical doctor will tell you how carelessness can lead to casualties. That exhaustion can take out even the most accomplished athletes. And that Mr. Armstrong's death has all the signs of natural causes. And finally, the consequences. Why did Mr. Armstrong drown? Mr. Martin will take the stand, and he'll tell you how the producers pushed him to tamper with challenges. He'll get up here and you'll hear him say that he did put oxalic acid in Mr. Armstrong's mouth. That the amount, It wasn't fatal. It wasn't even toxic. You'll hear that the conditions on the show, well, the challenges were meant to push competitors. And it wore them down, both physically and mentally. Members of the jury, no one in this room disputes that Mr. Armstrong's death was a tragedy. He was a loving husband, a father. And that grief can be overwhelming. But throughout today's trial, we'll ask you to keep one question in mind. What actually caused Mr. Armstrong to drown? It was the competition, not the chemical. And that's why my co-counsel, Miss Judy, she'll come up and she'll walk you through the conditions, the carelessness, and the consequences. And she'll ask that you find Mr. Martin not guilty. Thank you.
Before we proceed to the next witness, or the first witness, can I borrow a pen?
First.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Great.
Here you go, Your Honor. Oh,
Oh,
well, have one.
Okay. If you guys are ready for the first one, the prosecution.
Oh, but I actually have like a minute right now on this.
First witness.
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls illegal acquaintance. May I proceed, Your Honor? Good morning, Ms. Quaid. Can you please introduce yourself to the court?
Good morning. My name is Indigo Quick.
Ms. Quaid, what do you do for a living?
Well, right now I'm staying in France. I'm hoping to launch my newest artisanal food commercial. But, most people know me as either a competitor or the host of the hit reality TV show Sabotage.
How did you get into that line of work?
Well, I must have gotten my first big break when I was in diapers. The Gap Kids agency, gosh, they just adored me. Put my face on every aisle of the children's sections. I've tried my hand at a couple of things, but being an entertainer is really what I love.
Ma'am, do you know why you're here today?
Well, they called me in to talk about what happened on set with Rob Armstrong. It's tragic what happened to him. He was a great guy to be erected on set.
Before we talk about Mr. Armstrong, I want to talk about the show you hosted, The Saboteurs. How did that show work?
Basically, The Saboteurs was a reality TV show. Competitors would compete in these challenges, like obstacles or puzzles, and each one would get eliminated until there was only one person left. But the twist is, a few contestants got to play saboteurs. Now, as a saboteur, you were allowed to sabotage other contestants to try to get them kicked off the show.
What is your role as the host of the show entail?
Well, I was in charge of preseason interviews, generating buzz, the going-ons of the show. I wanted to do the best job I could do. I wanted to make the show as popular as my role on Fiddler on the Roof. I was the roof. So,
Have you seen the show before you hosted it?
yes, I've loved the show since I think its second season. Actually, that was the season that Charlie Martin was on with Rob Armstrong.
Would you recognize Charlie Martin in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's wearing a black suit and a blue tie.
Let the record reflect, the witness has correctly identified the defendant. Now, ma'am, I want to focus on season 2. What do you remember from that season?
Well, I remember watching it when I was auditioning to be the newest Liberty Mutual insurance lady. But I guess they went for that woman instead. Anyways, the most memorable part of the show was when Rob Armstrong portrayed Charlie on national television and took the grand prize for himself.
Do you know how the defendant felt about that?
I know what he told me. I actually had a chance to interview with Charlie before the upcoming season, the recent season.
Ms. Quaid, would you recognize a copy of that interview if I was to show it to you today?
I would.
Let the record reflect that I'm approaching the witness with what has been pre-marked as, may I approach opposing counsel with what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 25? I'm approaching the witness in charge of that same exhibit. With permission to approach and give you a courtesy copy, please, Your Honor. Yes, sir.
So what is this? Well, this is a transcript of that interview I did with Charlie.
Is it a fair and accurate copy?
It looks like it, yes.
Has this copy been changed or altered in any way?
No, it doesn't look like it.
The prosecution moves Exhibit 25 ahead.
Yes, Your Honor, to hearsay, we understand that for our opponent, that Mr. Martin's statements can come through, but we ask to strike all other statements.
Response.
Yes, Your Honor. This is an interview, and the statements only contained in here are from Charlie Martin, the defendant, Indigo Quaid, who's asking the questions. We don't believe that the statements from Indigo Quaid contain any statements in their questions just to provide context. We're only concerned with the statements of the defendant under Rule 801B2, as the opposing counsel mentioned.
So you want to strike everything Vito says?
Yes, Your Honor. We're happy to constructively strike it for you.
You know, you go, okay.
With Indigo Quaid's statements constructively redacted, we have no further objections.
Yes. Wait, does anything stand out in this interval for you two?
Well, I guess I didn't think much about it at the time. But at the end, Charlie says that he'd been haunted by the betrayal of her.
Ma'am, after this interview, was there anything else that Charlie Martin said?
Oh, yes. And it honestly kind of worried me. After the cameras had stopped rolling, Charlie, he came up to me and he said he was going to make sure that Rob bled before going home and hitting the rocks.
Now, I want to talk whether the defendant may or may not have acted on that in the last season, that final episode. How did that day start?
Well, it started wrong. I was on set post game. We had this water dapping challenge planned and it seems like any other day.
Did the contestants need any equipment to compete in that challenge?
Yes, contestants needed a diving belt and a scuba mask. And an oxygen tank, so that they could breathe underwater.
Can you talk us through how Mr. Armstrong performed in that challenge?
Well, in the beginning, it was all fun. But then when we got to that challenge with frogs, I just remember him putting the mask on and then immediately taking it off and coughing and spitting. And then he put the mask back on and he dived in.
And did he ever come out of that once?
No, he was unresponsive. And, you know, I love this show. I've dedicated so much of my life to it, but you know what happened? I never felt something so horrible could happen.
Thank you for your time, man. No further questions, sir.
Thanks, Ross.
Yes, Your Honor. Let's pick up right where you left off on direct examination with Mr. Martin and Mr. Armstrong's relationship. You mentioned that Charlie came up to you and he said that he wanted Mr. Armstrong to plead.
Yes, that's what he said, that he wanted Rob to plead before going on the box.
Ms. Quaid, just to be clear, on the show The Saboteurs, competitors will use words like murder.
Yes, that's true. That was one of the lingos of the show.
That's right.
Yes, like I said, they were both physical and mental challenges.
But one of those challenges involved competitors standing on a log, holding onto a rope until there was one person.
Yes, that was one of them.
Another challenge. Well, that involved facing their worst fear.
Yes, that was one.
It included being covered in bugs,
That's true.
walking on a tightrope,
That's also true, man.
even getting a tattoo.
That's correct.
Now, the day that Mr. Armstrong died, that featured an underwater challenge.
Yes, the diving challenge that I mentioned before.
Now, the day before that was another underwater challenge.
Yes, that's true.
Competitors had to dive 10 feet underwater,
Yes,
memorize a code,
that's right.
and then relay that code back to their partner.
That's correct. That was the challenge.
For this challenge, competitors were given a respirator,
Yes, that's true.
but Mr. Armstrong, he didn't get one.
No, Charlie Martin, as part of his sabotage of that episode, took away Rob's respirator.
Right, and that was part of the show.
Yes,
But Mr. Armstrong, he completed that challenge anyways.
that's true. He did.
Now, you believe that Mr. Armstrong, he pushed himself too far.
Yes, Rob was a tough competitor, I would say.
So it's a yes, you believe that Rob Armstrong, he pushed himself too far.
Yes, he did.
Ms. Quaid, you think that quit, it just wasn't in Mr. Armstrong's vocabulary.
That's true. Like I said, Rob, he had a legacy of being a winner over the years.
So Ms. Quaid, that's a yes. You believe that quit just wasn't in Mr. Armstrong's vocabulary.
Yes.
So let's talk about the consequences of those conditions. Now, ma'am, the day of the challenge, it involves a water and land part.
Yes, that's true.
Now, for that land part, competitors had to sprint through a forest,
Yes, ma'am.
go through an obstacle course.
Yes,
This included crawling through mud pits,
that's true. That was part of the challenge.
climbing up rope walls. And while competitors did this, they wore a weighted backpack.
Yes, that was part of it as well.
Now, Mr. Armstrong, he completed the land challenge.
He did. Yes,
He sprinted down to the lagoon.
he did.
But ma'am, I want to be clear. Mr. Armstrong will keep struggling.
Objection, Your Honor. Speculation. Response.
Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Quaid was watching this challenge. If I may proffer. The next questions are going to establish what signs that she saw for her to think that Mr. Armstrong was exhausted.
Response. Yeah, the question asked, he was struggling, correct? That's speculating to the mind of Mr. Armstrong and his physical appearance. They also have not laid any foundation.
Why don't you ask the questions like you said you're going to talk about science struggle and then you can ask this question after that.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Quaid, you thought that Mr. Armstrong, he was running slower than normal.
Yes, I do remember Rob was running a little bit slower that day.
In fact, he wasn't just running slower, he was lagging behind the other competitors.
He was.
For most of the challenges, Mr. Armstrong led the pack.
Yes, most of the time.
In episode 3, he even had the fastest time.
Yes, that's true.
But today, he was behind even Mr. Martin.
Yes, that's correct.
And when he reached the lagoon, well, he was breathing heavily.
Yes, Rob was breathing heavily by the time he reached the window.
You thought that he looked exhausted.
I did. It was a tough challenge. I wouldn't have expected anything less.
Right, but Ms. Quaid, you thought he looked exhausted.
I did.
And he put on his mask,
He did put on his mask.
and he dove 30 feet down.
Yes, that's correct.
You noticed that while he was swimming, he started to struggle.
Yes, yes, that's true.
He wasn't going as fast as he normally did.
No, he wasn't.
But man, the producers didn't send in the rescue divers.
Objection. This question also, Your Honor, this question also calls for speculation on why the actions of the producers. Ms. Quaid has not laid any foundation that they are in communication with the producers during that challenge.
Your only question was the producers not sent rescue divers, which is just simple.
Yes, Your Honor.
So Ms. Quaid, after Mr. Armstrong started struggling, the producers didn't send in the rescue divers.
Well, they did send the rescue divers.
Ma'am, we'll get to that in a minute. But when Mr. Armstrong first started struggling, the rescue divers weren't sent in.
Sure, there was some time before the divers did come in.
Ma'am, Mr. Armstrong wasn't just struggling, he was drifting aimlessly.
Yes, that's true.
Even then, production company, they didn't send in the rescue divers.
No, but they did eventually send them in.
We'll get to that in a moment, ma'am, but then Mr. Armstrong tore off his mask.
That's true, yes.
The producers still didn't send in the rescue divers.
They did.
When Mr. Armstrong stopped.
Yes. He was found that.
Oh, ma'am, when he stopped moving, it was then. And only then, after he stopped moving completely, the production company sent in the rescue divers. Thanks, Wade. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
No redirect.
Second. round.
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, prosecution calls Dr. Atlas Hartley to the stand.
May I begin? Good morning. Could you introduce yourself to the jury?
Good morning, I'm Dr. Atlas Hartley.
What do you do for work?
I'm the chief medical examiner right here in Tufts County.
What do you do as chief medical examiner?
Well, I perform autopsies and analyze the results to come to a conclusion about someone's manner of death. And some days I'm lucky enough to share my findings with law enforcement.
Doctor, what kind of educational background do you have?
I got my bachelor's in forensics from the University of Southern Florida, and I liked the weather down there so much that I got my doctorate from the University of Southern Florida. Then I did my residency in anatomical and clinical pathology up at Wake Forest, and finally I bundled up and went up to Michigan for my forensic pathology fellowship. And I have to say, obviously, for my job, I survived it, and I've been doing autopsies for almost 20 years.
So how were you involved in this case?
I performed Rob Armstrong's autopsy and I did toxicology tests to determine his manner.
Did you use a method in trying to determine that manner of death?
Yes, I used the EIA method. It's the same method I use for all my autopsies. It basically stands for external and internal analysis. I do an external examination and internal examination, and then I analyze my findings to come to a conclusion about the manner.
Is the EIA method reliable?
Yes, it's the gold standard in our field.
And did you reliably apply it to the facts of today's case?
Yes, I did.
What information did you use to do that?
Well, like I said, I performed Rob Armstrong's autopsy and toxicology tests, and I wrote reports on both. Then I did additional notes on the video footage of Mr. Armstrong's death.
All right, doctor, a moment ago you mentioned an autopsy report and a toxicology test. Would you recognize those reports today?
Yes, I would.
Permission to approach opposing counsel with exhibits 3. Approaching counsel. Approaching the witness now. Would you like a courtesy copy of permission to approach the bench? All right, doctor, what if I just handed you?
You handed me the autopsy report and the toxicology analysis.
Are they both fair and accurate?
Yes,
Have they been changed or altered in any way?
not at all.
State moves exhibits 3 and 4.
Just
No objections. All right, doctor, I want to start with that autopsy report, exhibit 3. Where did you start with that?
Well, I started with an external examination. I looked at Mr. Armstrong's mouth and nose area, found that there were abrasions that looks like chemical burn.
What did you do next?
Then I did an internal examination. Immediately I found redness and irritation in his airway. So I decided to look at the possibility of, that Mr. Armstrong might have inhaled a chemical irritant by studying his kidneys pretest.
Did you find anything in his kidneys?
Yes, I found calcium oxalate crystals. And when those show up in the kidneys, that can mean that chemical substance was introduced to the body.
Doctor, do you know of any chemical substance that might be able to cause the formation of those crystals?
Yes, it could have been something called oxalic acid. So I decided to run some tests on oxalic acid in Mr. Armstrong's body.
Well, did you find any oxalic acid?
Yes, quite a bit of it actually.
You mentioned you found quite a bit of oxalic acid in his body. Is that normal?
It depends. Not to alarm you, Ms. Farrar, but we have oxalic acid. Everybody has oxalic acid in them. However, the amount you'd expect to see in the average person is very low.
So how did the amount you'd expect to see in the average person compare to what you found in Mr. Armstrong's system?
Well, just in his mouth and nose area alone, the concentration was 11 times what we'd expect to see. And for the other tissues, it was 8 to 11 times. So everything that I tested had well above the safe amount for oxalic acid in the blood.
So what does that mean for this case?
Well, due to the levels and the physical signs of inhalation, I could determine that Mr. Armstrong inhaled oxalic acid. And this was and I could also estimate that this was well above the safe amount.
So doctor, how does this inform your conclusions in today's case?
Well, this informs my conclusions in today's case because I looked at the toxicology test and this informed my conclusions in today's case because I found that Mr. Armstrong might have inhaled oxalic acid. So that's what I see possibly.
All right, Dr. Hartley, you mentioned a moment ago that you reviewed some video footage of Mr. Armstrong's death. Would you recognize those notes today?
Of course.
I'm approaching opposing counsel and approaching the witness in terms of exhibit 5. Would you want to like courtesy copy? Approach the bench. All right, Doctor, are these those footage notes you mentioned?
Yes.
Are they fair and accurate?
Yes.
Have they been changed or altered in any way?
Not at all.
State Groups 5 and per stipulation, both parties have agreed that the information contained therein is accurate as to what happened to Mr. Armstrong during his death. That's our understanding as well. We have no objection. So Dr. Hartley, we're going to get to these notes in a moment, but I wanted to ask you, do you know what might happen to someone that had inhaled oxalic acid?
Well, that's a bit of a difficult concept to explain. So I actually brought a chart along and
I'm permission for the doctor to step to the well and use the hospital. And my colleague and I will be setting up that demonstrative now. May I move to see it?
Yes. Also for demonstrations in the future, always.
All right, Dr. Hartley, what are we looking at here?
well, this was that chart I was talking about. And it shows what I would expect to happen if Mr. Armstrong inhaled oxalic acid.
All right, so looking at the time after inhalation, can you tell us what might happen during that first interval of someone with inhaled oxalic acid?
Yes, from 10 to 30 seconds, we would expect irritation in the throat and for Mr. Armstrong to cough. I'm reflecting that.
What about from the second time interval? What would we be able to expect?
From 4 to 6 minutes, we'd expect early signs of oxygen deprivation to start to show. And that would present through confusion and muscle weakness. I'm reflecting that.
And what about that last time interval, doctor?
From 10 to 15 minutes, this is when we start to see moderate signs of oxygen deprivation. That would present through this disorientation and this would present through disorientation and tunnel vision. I'm reflecting that.
So we got a review of Mr. Armstrong's death. Could you tell us what happened during that first interval from 10 to 30 seconds?
Yes, like I said, I took extensive notes on the footage of Mr. Armstrong's death, and I compared this with what I would expect to happen. So from 10 to 30 seconds, we see Mr. Armstrong put on his mask and then immediately rip it off and start coughing. I'm reflecting that.
What about from 4 to 6 minutes? What was happening then?
From 4 to 6 minutes, he
see Mr. Armstrong noticeably slow down. He looks around at random, and he was doing the challenge at this point, but then he immediately stops and starts looking around more. And reflect on that.
And from 10 to 15 minutes, what was happening then?
From 10 to 15 minutes, he swims up and down again. He looks around at random more, and his eyes look completely unfocused. I thought he was extremely confused. So, and then after a few minutes, he rips his mask off, and unfortunately for Mr. Armstrong, that's when he begins to drown. I'm reflecting that.
Objection, Your Honor. The speculation just to one very specific part of this demonstrative where it says tunnel vision. We haven't heard foundation that Dr. Hartley would be able to establish that Mr. Armstrong was actually experiencing tunnel vision in these symptoms that she described.
Responsible.
Yes, Your Honor. This where it says tunnel vision is under the expected symptoms of inhaling oxalic acid. It's actually not on the record that Dr. Hartley believes that Mr. Armstrong experienced tunnel vision, but even if she did testify to it, it would be in her rational-based perception as an expert witness. Both parties agreed that the footage of Mr. Armstrong during that dive is accurate. And she already testified that he looks around at random, ascends and descends at various intervals, that he appears to panic. That's certainly foundation for her being able to testify that tunnel vision was a possible symptom that Mr. Armstrong would have been experiencing it.
Did she say tunnel vision was possible, or is that's what she experienced?
Your Honor, I believe she said it was a possible symptom, but my concern is that if the jury sees this, if they're looking at this demonstrative and sees the word tunnel vision, and then sees symptoms that could describe a separate issue right next to it, well, they might assume that Mr. Armstrong was experiencing tunnel vision as well, even though there's no foundation for it. Tunnel vision is a really hard thing to be able to witness someone experiencing, and we don't believe that Dr. Hartley is able to testify to that.
I mean, if the grounds of your objection is speculation.
That's right, Your Honor.
Okay, on that basis.
Yes, sir. Dr. Hartley, were you finished with your answer there about what happened between 10 and 15 minutes?
No. So, like I said, what happened from 10 to 15 minutes is that Mr. Armstrong went up and down again, looked extremely confused, and then he rips his mask off and drowns. And what I did was I compared these observations to what we'd expect from Mr. Armstrong, and I concluded that it was likely Mr. Armstrong inhaled oxalic acid shortly before his death.
Well, thank you for explaining all of that to us, Doctor. You can go ahead and retake your seat. And at this time, I've got nothing further. I'll just be approaching your needs to retrieve those documents. So,
Let's just say.
yes, can you give it up, please?
I'm actually grabbing my own as well.
I'll just be repositioning my seat. Good morning, Dr. Hartley.
Good morning.
Before we get to this demonstrative that you showed us, I want to talk about the conclusion that Mr. Armstrong inhaled a significant amount of oxalic acid. Because that's what you told us on direct examination, right?
Yes, I concluded that Mr. Armstrong inhaled a significant amount of oxalic acid due to the signs of physical inhalation and the levels present in blood.
I want to break down those signs and the symptoms that you just told us in a second. But first, to be clear, when you made that conclusion, when you did Mr. Armstrong's autopsy,
Yes,
you did a toxicology screen,
yes, I did.
and you determined how much oxalic acid was in his blood when he died.
Yes, I did determine how much oxalic acid was in his blood.
And then from there, you worked backwards to try and figure out how much he inhaled.
I didn't particularly work backwards. I just looked at what was already present in the body and I used that to conclude how much he inhaled.
So based on the factors you had, you assumed how much he inhaled.
I made a scientific estimate of what he could have inhaled by looking at what was already present in his.
Now that scientific estimate, it wasn't just based on the levels of oxalic acid in his blood when he died, right?
No, it was also based on the physical signs of inhalation.
That's right. It was also based on physical characteristics of Mr. Armstrong.
Yes.
That includes his height,
Yes,
his sex,
yes,
his weight.
yes.
Dr. Hartley, you didn't note his height or his weight in his autopsy, did you?
Well, I did conclude that he inhaled over a safe amount of oxalic acid because he was physically fit, and I relied on other things such as his weight.
So that's a yes. You didn't include his height or his weight in your autopsy.
Yes,
You didn't include his height or his weight in the toxicology report.
no,
You didn't even include his height or his weight in your own medical report.
um, no, I did not.
Dr. Hartley, sitting here today, you can't tell us how much Mr. Armstrong weighed,
No, I did not.
and you can't tell us how tall he was.
No.
Even those were factors that you relied on.
Yes, those were factors.
I want to talk about this chart that you showed us. Because, Dr. Hartley, you told us here that burning at the throat and coughing, well, that happened about 10 to 30 seconds after Mr. Armstrong, you say inhaled oxalic acid, right?
Yes,
You'd actually expect burning at the throat a minute after he inhaled.
well, you'd expect burning at the throat 10 to 30 seconds, but it could last longer.
That's right, it actually lasts all the way to 12 minutes, right?
Yes, but,
Because,
sorry. Yes, but it would have started early on. I was just marking what started.
so that's yes, could have lasted to 12 minutes.
Yes,
Because 12 minutes, not 10 to 30 seconds, that's when Mr. Armstrong rips off his mask.
well, yes, he rips off his mask again after finish.
So that's a yes, he rips off his mask 12 minutes into the dive.
Yes,
You also have on here that Mr. Armstrong could have experienced muscle weakness.
yes, I did.
To be clear, that could have been from any other source.
Yes, but I was showing that it was also a symptom of oxalic acid.
So it could have been from any other source.
Yes,
He could have just been exhausted.
yes, that could be a possibility.
In fact, in those video notes that you told us about, you noted that Mr. Armstrong appeared tired before he ever put that mask on.
Yes, I did note that.
He's breathing heavily from the prior exertion,
Yes, he was breathing.
and that was before he ever touched that oxygen mask.
Yes,
You also noted that tunnel vision is one of the symptoms that he could have experienced.
yes, I did.
To be clear, you didn't see tunnel vision at all.
Well, I saw that Mr. Armstrong's eyes were unfocused, so that is something that could be a like indicator of tunnel.
Could also be an indicator of being confused.
Yes, which is another symptom that I mentioned.
So you don't actually know if Mr. Armstrong was experiencing tunnel vision.
Yes, it could have been tunnel vision and confusion in a mix, or just confusion.
So that's a yes to my question. You don't know if he was experiencing tunnel vision.
Not exactly.
Let's talk about some symptoms that you don't mention on this chart. Now, Dr. Hartley, there's a few symptoms you'd expect to see 1 to 2 minutes after Mr. Armstrong inhales oxalic acid.
Yes,
That would include dizziness and shortness of breath.
yes,
You don't believe that he was experiencing dizziness until more than 4 minutes into the dive.
Well, like I said, I believe that he was experiencing confusion, and that could be an indicator of this.
So redirecting you back to my question, you don't believe he was experiencing dizziness until more than 4 minutes into the dive.
Yes,
He wasn't experiencing shortness of breath until more than 5 minutes into the dive.
yes,
You'd also expect Mr. Armstrong to be confused or disoriented about 4 to 6 minutes in, right?
yes, he would.
Dr. Hartley, you don't note Mr. Armstrong appearing disoriented until 8 minutes into the dive.
No, I do mention that Mr. Armstrong is disoriented from 5:30 to 8 minutes.
Dr. Hartley, you don't use the word disorientation until 8 minutes in.
No, I don't use, well, I don't use the word disorientation, but I do use the word confusion.
So that's a yes. You don't use the word disorientation until 8 minutes into Mr. Armstrong's dive.
Objection, Your Honor, has an answer.
Your Honor, yes, Your Honor. Now, we talked a little bit about tunnel vision before, but I just want to clarify that you'd expect that about 10 to 15 minutes in.
Yes, you would.
The 10 to 15 minutes, and you'd also expect to see a bluish tint to the nails and skin.
Yes, you would.
And you have no reason to believe that Mr. Armstrong was experiencing tunnel vision at all.
Well, like I said, I saw that his eyes weren't focused, and that's an indicator of tunnel.
Doctor, you did not conclude that he experienced tunnel vision.
No, but it said that it was a likely possibility.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
And you didn't observe a bluish tint to his nails or skin either.
I didn't observe a bluish tint while he was underwater, but in the autopsy after, I saw that there was cyanosis. And that is basically when there is purpleness or bluishness in the tips of the finger.
So 10 to 15 minutes in, you did not see a bluish tint to the nails or skin.
No, but I was not close enough to see those particular details in Mr. Armstrong's video, and it was also underwater, so it's difficult to tell what's the bluish tint from the water and what's the bluish tint from the skin.
So you didn't see.
No.
That objection to attorney testified, if I may be clear. Your Honor, the demonstrative here says that a bluish tint to the nails and skin was not observed at all, and that's not what the witness said. She said that in the autopsy, the post-mortem autopsy, that she did observe that bluish tint to the nails and skin. Now, having this on this demonstrative that it was not observed at all, it's going to mislead the jury into believing that it did not exist, which is simply not true. She's already testified that it was possible to see whether or not his fingers and nails were blue underwater, and that she did observe them in the post-mortem analysis. It's misleading the jury.
So your objection to this signature, not jury testimony.
No, Your Honor, we believe that the testimony that's being elicited on the demonstrative is not the testimony of the witness each witness.
Response?
Yes, Your Honor, the not observed is actually 10 to 15 minutes after a dive. It's clarifying that this was never observed during the dive. All of these symptoms are only concerned with what happened during the dive. Now, the jury will hear Dr. Hartley's testimony, and they'll be able to reflect on the fact that she said that it was observed during the autopsy, but 10 to 15 minutes after inhaling, she agreed she didn't observe a bluish tint to the nails or skin.
I think the way it's shown on the demonstrative might mislead a little bit because it just says statement not observed. But we can let the jury know this is in reference to the fact that it's regarding actual diet observations and not autopsy. So for now, let's just say it's constructive. But we could note that this was in reference to the actual. So that's what we can say. Or this is just demonstrative itself.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Dr. Hartley, these symptoms that you told us about on direct examination, those are based on the fact that Mr. Armstrong inhaled a significant amount of oxalic acid in your opinion.
Well, the fact that he inhaled a significant amount are based on observation.
So that's a yes. But Dr. Hartley, you agree that if he inhaled a little bit of oxalic acid, that wouldn't be fatal.
Well, if he inhaled below the, what would be considered if he inhaled less than what would be considered an unsafe amount, then yes.
So that's a yes. If he inhaled just a little bit, that wouldn't be fatal.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Hartley. I have no further questions.
Before I make a decision on that, can I ask how much time we have left?
7:09.
7:09, no reader. Deconstructing this on. Sorry. No worries. Constructing on the booster. Just ask the doctor how they get done now.
Yes, Your Honor. The state called Karen Rivera to the stand. Good morning, ma'am. Can you introduce yourself to the members of the jury?
Good morning. My name's Taryn Rivera.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a federal investigator. I worked at the FBI for 10 years, and I just recently transferred to the Federal Trade Commission.
How are you involved in this case today?
I was on the set of the show The Saboteurs, originally investigating an issue with the Federal Trade Commission, and I was on the set in the weeks leading up to Rob Armstrong's death. So afterwards, I talked to the local police and became the chief investigator of this case.
Well, ma'am, then I want to talk about your investigations. When did you start investigating the death of Mr. Armstrong?
After he died, I worked with the local police to become the head investigator and collected evidence for several months, all of which is in court today. Afterwards, I arrested the defendant.
Well, let's talk about some of that evidence that led you to arrest the defendant. Did you obtain a search warrant for any of the defendant's belongings?
Yes, I did. I got a search warrant for the defendant's phone.
Did you find anything on that phone?
Yes, I found many messages and files on phone.
Your Honor, permission for the inspector to step down into the well and make use of this demonstrative, and as well permission to approach opposing counsel, and then with exhibit 18. Yes. And courtesy copy to the bench. Yes. So, ma'am, what are we looking at here?
This is a timeline of my investigation. I organized my findings for all of you today. I'll show you what I found.
First, can you tell us about these text messages that are inaccurate?
Yes, they are.
Have they been changed or altered in any way?
Not that I can tell.
And Your Honor, at this time, the state offers exhibit 18C and 18D in evidence.
But not in
Not in the
objection to see.
Yes, Your Honor, we ask that any statements not made by the defendant, Charlie Martin, be constructively redacted from these exhibits.
Which thing?
Any statements made by Riley Kay, the other person within these text conversations.
We can view like so. It seems as though both. So it's just I'm a little confused. Like this is the defendant speaking to these individuals, it's like defective.
Yeah.
So anything from the defendant, not yourself. Text.
That's right.
Your Honor, can I clarify?
Yes.
Exhibit 18C is from the decedent, Rob Armstrong, and exhibit 18D is a text conversation between one of the producers of the reality TV show. His messages are the ones in gray, and the defendant, Charlie Martin, his messages are the ones in blue. And we can take that hearsay objection one exhibit at a time if you'd like.
Okay, so this is the scene.
This is 18C, Your Honor.
18D is defendant in blue, producer in gray.
Yes.
Okay. We don't have to glance on response on that. You just want producer text to be gone and also the decedent.
Yes, Your Honor, sorry for the confusion.
You totally, so
If I must respond, Your Honor. So the statements being used, the statements made by Mr. Armstrong are not being used for the truth of the matter asserted. The statements are, in case you forget, I win, you lose, that's how it works. And then that statement is not being used for the truth of the matter. We don't actually care if Mr. Armstrong wins. We don't believe that Mr. Armstrong did win this challenge or in the competition. The second statement, I can't wait for the internet to go off on you after you humiliate yourself again. That falls under hearsay exception 8033. It's a state of mind, but we're still not using it for its truth value either way. And the last one, the popcorn is already popping itself. There's no truth value that's important to this case, Your Honor.
So what are you using this for?
We're using it on the timeline, Your Honor, to show possible subsequent action of the defendant or the effect on the listener.
Okay, response.
I stand by my objection.
To remove Armstrong and the producers.
Yes.
And your response from the producers.
Yes, Your Honor. So the producer's statements are, I knew you would come around and, you know, I can't tell you anything. Neither of these statements are being used for the truth of the matter asserted either. They're just used to contextualize the conversation. The statement that we're interested in is fine, I'm in, but you owe me big time, just to prove that this is when the defendant agreed to come back onto the show.
So it's like for time purposes.
Yes, Your Honor.
So I'm going to say D, so.
Yes.
We'll also say C is okay conditionally. If opposing counsel takes up this without the use of action, there is true value set messages re-raised and we talk about them. But for now, conditionally C you're in. But you have the option to object if that true value is not.
Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. So, ma'am, can you tell us about these first text messages?
Mr. Armstrong tells the defendant, in case you forgot, I win, you lose. That's how it works. I can't wait for the internet to go off on you after you humiliate yourself all over again on January 7th at 11:30 p.m.
So how did the defendant respond to these text messages?
That's what was odd. The defendant didn't exactly respond to these texts. Instead, I found a fact sheet for a chemical called oxalic acid downloaded onto the defendant's phone just 10 hours after this message was received at 9:46 a.m. on January 8th.
And Your Honor, just for the record, the information up right now reflects the stipulation that was read in pre-trial. Would you recognize that data sheet if I were to show it to you?
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach opposing counsel with Exhibit 14. Approaching the witness. Your Honor, would you like a courtesy copy?
Yes.
Is this the data sheet you found on the defendant's phone?
Yes, it is.
Is it found inaccurate?
Yes.
Has it been altered in any way?
No, it has not.
Your Honor, the state moves 14.
This stipulation say this was pretty.
No, Your Honor, just that this was found on the defendant's phone.
Got your response.
We have no objection, Your Honor.
So can you tell us about this data sheet for oxalic acid?
This data sheet talks about oxalic acid and its effects when inhaled.
And what exactly does it say about oxalic acid?
It says that when inhaled, it can cause symptoms of burning in the throat, shortness of breath, and can result to damage in the kidneys and lungs.
Does it say if oxalic acid is dangerous?
Yes, it does.
So what did you, going back to these text messages that we saw earlier, what did you find next on the defendant's phone after this was done?
Just an hour and a half after this data sheet was downloaded, I found messages from the defendant sent to one of the producers telling them they decided to come back onto the show.
So ma'am, what did you find next in your investigation?
Next, now we jump to when the defendant was on the show, the saboteurs. I found messages the defendant sent to one of the producers.
Would you recognize that? I would show it to you.
Yes, I would.
Your Honor, I'm approaching opposing counsel with Exhibit 19. Courtesy copy for the bench. We're on 19. Approaching the witness. Is this the text message that you found while the defendant was on the show?
Yes, it is.
Is it fair and accurate?
Yes.
Your Honor, I have to change your also anyway.
No, it doesn't.
Your Honor, the state moves 19C.
Just don't understand, Mr. Justice.
Between the defendant, the defendant's text messages are the ones in gray, and the producer is the one in green.
Response to any objections towards this?
I just asked if to strike the producer's statements in the text message. If the
prosecution would like to explain, they are free to do so, but I would also like to strike this testimony.
Just the text and issue that's right, text agreement.
Your Honor, there's no truth value in the statements made by the producer. They're just being used to contextualize the statements of the defendant. The statement is, he's the challenge beast for a reason. We don't actually care if Mr. Armstrong was a challenge beast. We're just using it to show the flow of the conversation.
The issue with, still the issue, sure.
Referring to exhibit 19C,
Yes.
then I have no issues.
Yes, ma'am. So can you explain these text messages from the show to the members of the jury?
The defendant tells one of the producers, I'll tell you right now, I'm done doing this the right way. It's time for something stronger.
Ma'am, after the defendant said it's time for something stronger, what happened on the TV show?
I looked back on my time undercover on the set of The Saboteurs, and I remembered I saw the defendant Charlie Martin the morning of Mr. Armstrong's death, messing around with Mr. Armstrong's scuba equipment.
Do you know who was doing the scuba equipment?
Later, I learned the defendant was pouring oxalic acid into the defendant's scuba mask.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions at this time. However, as per the pretrial motion, we'll be reading two statements from the defendant's interrogation onto the record. They're on lines for opposing counsel. Lines 94 and 107. The officer asks on line 94, then why did we find the same poison in Mr. Armstrong's system? On line 107, the defendant responds, I admit I put it in a mask. And with that, we have nothing further, Your Honor.
Objection, Your Honor, to Rule 107, rule of completeness.
Okay. Said 107.
They have to read the entire line they went to end.
That's a partial aspect of that statement you read.
Your Honor, all of the information between the two lines was not countering the statements that read in any way. We're happy to move the information between those two lines into evidence if opposing counsel would like that. However, we just chose these two for conciseness. There's no contradicting statements between the two statements.
Is there anything particular about the statements that were not read? Should be read on the record?
Yes, Your Honor, there's crucial context missing from the lines that they told you not to say. There is not an issue of conciseness, that context is necessary.
Must read on the record.
Yes, Your Honor. The same acid used to clean the floors was found in in Armstrong's bloodstream. Watch. The defendant says, wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I didn't think it would be enough to show up in his screen or be in his blood. The night I took it from the supply ring was also the night we were setting the sabotage with the final challenge. I had it in my backpack with me because the only time I was allowed to leave my room was to do the sabotage, and I knew I needed to get the bleach while I was walking to Mr. K. So I had it in my backpack when I went down to the challenge. We each had our equipment in different colors with our names on the side of each piece. I thought the stuff smelled bad, so I put it in Rob's mask. He would rip it off immediately and then not be able to do the challenge. The officer says, you want us to believe you put it in there, not intending for him to breathe it in. And the defendant says, yes, of course, I admit I put it in the mask.
Okay, I sustained that, and that's gonna be on record.
Yes, Your Honor. So just to be clear, all of the statements that I just read are now on the record? Yes. Yes, Your Honor. With that, we have nothing further.
Okay,
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Bear. Good morning. So as you stated previously, you worked with the FBI for 10 years. Yes, I did. So we agreed. It's important to be thorough in your investigation. Yes. Let's talk about whether or not you learned. So, you worked on the set with Saboteurs. Yes, I was undercover investigating an issue for the FTC. We got anonymous tips that the show was being rigged. That's right, which means your initial investigation wasn't related to Mr. Martin at all, was it? No, but I lived on the set as I was undercover as a member of craft services, and I was perceptive and attentive to everything going on around me at all times. Now, previously, you worked in Wirefront, correct? Yes.
And money laundering
Yes, that's also true.
and illegal gambling,
Yes,
but not homicide.
no. So I took the FBI standard for investigating any case and applied it to this one.
But to be clear, you've never worked a homicide case, have you?
No, I haven't.
Despite this, you put yourself as chief investigator of this case with Rob Armstrong, correct?
I worked with the local police and asked them to be the head investigator, and they readily agreed.
Now let's move on to that investigation. Like you said previously, you lived on the set of the statutes.
Yes, I did.
You were undercover as a crew member,
I was.
and the conditions weren't exactly the best, were they?
No, they had us packed like sardines.
They were even worse for the contestants, weren't they?
I can't fully say, but it wasn't the best hotel.
And as you were doing your investigation, you knew that contestants were monitored by production,
Yes,
and that they had to complete vigorous challenges.
depends what vigorous means to a person, but sure.
And they had to complete 9 of those challenges over the course of the season.
Yes,
Now, you've seen contestants put themselves through serious bodily harm to complete these challenges.
well, working in the Federal Trade Commission, I've seen a lot of game shows and reality TV, and this is common in many shows. I don't know exactly how the contestants felt about the challenges they experienced, though, in this one.
One of those contestants you saw was Rob Armstrong.
Yes,
You knew that he did a swimming challenge without a breast ring, correct?
yes, and I heard you won.
Now let's talk about that final challenge. You weren't there on the set that day, were you?
I was on the set of the show.
But you weren't where your challenge was being filmed.
No,
When you heard that Rob Armstrong had died, you had to come all the way to them.
yes, I did. I arrived when the paramedics announced him dead.
And you saw another producer looking through Rob Armstrong's equipment.
Yes, I did.
And you noticed that Rob Armstrong's backpack had 30 pounds of weight in it, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Meaning he had to do the entire final challenge on land with 30 pounds on his back.
Objection, Your Honor, to lack of personal knowledge. May I be heard?
Yes.
As the opposing counsel just stated, this witness wasn't present for any of these challenges. They have no personal knowledge as to what Mr. Armstrong would have had to do with this backpack before arriving to the set, which was when he was pronounced dead by the paramedics.
Response.
Your Honor, if I may proffer, the next question will show that the witness knew about the challenge.
You about the challenge.
They had knowledge as to what the aspects of the challenge were, as that they have seen the exhibit that shows what that challenge was.
Does she know about the fact that we were looking at her found that challenge?
Yes, they said that they knew that there were 30 pounds in the bag, and they knew that they had to carry that bag throughout the challenge.
Response.
Yes, Your Honor. As was stated, this witness wasn't here for the challenge. Whether or not they knew because they were told it, well, that would be a different issue completely. If opposing counsel wants to delve into how this witness knows about this challenge, we ask that they lay that foundation before asking questions. But all we have on the record is that they weren't there for this challenge, and so there's no way that they would know about what this backpack was being used for. Yes, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Rivera, you're familiar with what the challenge looked like, correct?
Yes, I am.
And you recognize it if I showed it to you today?
I would.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that I showed opposing counsel was marked as exhibit 20. And approaching the witness. Would Your Honor like to comment? Yeah. Ms. Rivera, this is the final challenge that Rob Armstrong has to complete, correct?
Yes, it is. He was carrying a 30-pound backpack, and that's because Charlie Martin added an extra 20 pounds to his backpack.
Now let's talk about what this challenge is. Mr. Armstrong would have had to put on that backpack
Yes,
and then cross the balance beam.
Objection, Your Honor, to best evidence at this time. I don't believe that this document is going to enter into evidence.
Yes, now you've identified exhibit 20. Your Honor, I asked you if exhibit 20 is evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
No.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now to continue. Mr. Armstrong has crossed the balance beams,
Yes,
then climbed up the rope wall.
also yes,
Next was a set of balancing posts.
that's true.
He had to go through the mud pit,
Yes, this is reminding me a lot of my FBI Academy training, taking me back.
then up the next rope wall,
Yes,
across the next set of balance beams,
yes,
through the next mud pit,
also true.
and then he made it to the lagoon.
Yes,
All of that with 30 pounds on it.
yes, that I later learned was added by the defendant.
Now, you also heard today in court that Mr. Armstrong's father kind of.
Yes,
Now let's talk about what happened when he reached. Permission to review. Thank you. When Mr. Armstrong was in the water, he was wearing that oxygen mask, correct?
yes, he was.
Now, you've seen the underwater footage, correct?
Yes, I have.
So you saw that Mr. Armstrong took a long time to complete that challenge.
Yes, he did.
And when Mr. Armstrong stopped moving, that's when the safety diver scene.
Yes, that's true.
Not when he tore off his mask,
No,
not when he was stripping hands,
no,
but the safety divers came in when he was unresponsive.
yes, that's true.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
No redirect, Your Honor. We just ask that Mr. Rivera be allowed to step down. And at this time, the state rests our case in chief.
How much time do we have?
We have an hour 38 until all lost, so I think we can take 5 to 10.
Are you gonna post them tonight? What, are you gonna post them from the house? I mean, don't have to, I was just curious. Low key, I might not, because I'm scared I'm not gonna unpause it. It's on me. Read the back.
To use this to get another,
I'm like that. I actually don't want to talk that day, like, you're to be not the big size of love is not presented. I'm gonna put it as the other one. I feel like that's there, but I don't know. But I.
it's a, like,
Yes, I've done, but it's very nice.
when I started at San Pedro, I couldn't currently. So. It's. So like all of my guardians. Please.
So they are. It's like, you know, so there's one just because you know, it's like. But also, oh, your girl was fine. Those were my job. Beautiful. Let's take. You want some. That's all we do. We can read them. No, I think to like. No, it's supposed to be fun. I think like when you know what's happening, this is like the most entertaining thing I'll watch in my. But on that, I should put the rest of that. So I don't care.
This is yours. It's. It's.
my colleague Kevin is judged like 4 times, residing in one of the other rooms. Where for its first room? Yeah, it's just.
It's, I don't know, it's closed all the time. Yes. But I'm going to go in and out, and I might be somebody. So this is, just like, no one's really here, it's just a lot of students and. Yeah. Is it okay if I sit there and then if I leave?
No, yeah, I mean, as long as you, know, how the crazy distraction things.
Yeah, and I wanted, I'm gonna be respectful.
No, I mean, if you want to wait in between like witnesses or cross examinations like that, would be perfectly.
Okay. You guys can be seated. Oh. Yes. Great. Great. I'm sorry.
Defense is back and ready to go.
We are receiving numbers. I believe there she is.
Satan's back.
Your.
Yes.
Okay, first one is from the defense.
The defense calls Rowan Patel. Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself?
Rowan Patel.
What do you do for work, Mr. Patel?
Well, I'm currently in between jobs at the moment. But before that,
I was a challenge designer for a reality TV show.
How'd you get into that line of work?
Well, I got my start on a Great British Baking Show. You see, my idea for the show was high energy, all around, mystery ingredients, tying contestants together. The whole bit. Turns out they wanted a lovey-dovey show where contestants being scones together. But it was all a bit humdrum, if you ask me. I'd be much more fond of American shows where I got to design challenges and such.
What kind of challenges did you design?
Anything you could think of, really. My favourite is making contestants eat odd things. Making them spill onions. Makes me laugh.
Who did you design these challenges for?
I work for the Saboteurs since they first said it's a reality TV show.
Is the saboteurs successful?
I'd say so. I mean, like any show, we weren't perfect. Our best was season 2.
What happened in season 2?
Season 2 had the betrayal between Charlie Martin and Rob Armstrong. See, in the finale, they were the last 2 saboteurs, destined to split the grand prize of £1 million. But in the end, Rob sought out Charlie and took on the money for himself.
Did Rob Armstrong and Charlie Martin ever come back onto the show?
Yeah, they did. We decided to make season 10 in not last season, bringing back our fans' favourite competitors.
How did it go?
It went brilliant, smashing even. But, well, that wasn't until Charlie ruined things for the both of us.
Mr. Patel, I want to talk about your role on season 10 of the Saboteurs. What kind of challenges did you have them doing?
Running, swimming, obstacle courses, anything my heart desired, really.
Who made sure that competitors were safe?
Me. It was my job to identify the issues regarding safety in the challenge and develop contingency plans in case of emergencies.
Mr. Patel, do you have any injury prevention or equipment safety training?
No.
Do you have any occupational safety certifications?
Not exactly.
Do you know first aid?
No, but if you consider reaching grade anatomy, medical training, then I'd say I'm quite overqualified.
So if you don't have any of this training, do you know why the show had you doing all the safety checks?
To be honest, I never really thought about it. It had always just been my job.
Talk about what happened on the day that Mr. Armstrong died. Permission to approach opposing counsel with Exhibit 21.
Oh, yes.
Approaching the witness with the same.
Thank you.
Would your honor like a copy?
Yes.
Here you go. Come on.
Mr. Patel, what did I just hand you?
This is the production schedule from the day of the final challenge.
Does it look fair and accurate?
I'd say so.
Defense offers Exhibit 21 into evidence. Pursuant to stipulation 10, all objections have been removed. May I approach the jury? May I approach?
Yes.
Mr. Patel, I want to walk through this schedule together. I see here at the top that says you have a final safety briefing. What does that mean?
Well, that consists of danger signals, emergency plans, medical protocols. It's all part of the team, season to season.
Who did you conduct these safety briefings with?
With everyone, of course, from the stars to the cameraman.
What happens next on this schedule?
Next is the film portion, camera checks, lighting, whatever it may be. And then I run the medical checks with the competitors.
Was Rob Armstrong medically cleared to compete on April 6th?
He was, yeah. I mean, he was clearly tired, banged and bruised a bit, as I like to say. But for the most part, he seemed to be all right.
I'm approaching to retrieve Exhibit 21. Mr. Patel, I want to talk about the final challenge itself. How did it start?
Well, first, contestants had to run through this entire forest filled with these fallen logs. And that entire time, they had to carry these weighted backpacks and hold them through balance beams and posts.
Is that all?
Not even close. They then had to run up rope walls, push through mud pits, and then sprint down this thin and narrow path all the way down to the bottom of a lagoon.
When this challenge was happening, what were you doing?
I was in a production shop, watching from afar.
And how was Mr. Armstrong doing?
He seemed to be okay. He was lagging behind Charlie a bit during the running portion.
What happened next in the challenge?
The contestants had to complete a door about 30 feet deep and untie these coloured rings off of an anchor.
Well, he was doing the diving portion. Did Mr. Armstrong signal for help in any way?
No, he didn't.
What was he doing?
He started fine and then started to struggle.
Were the safety divers sent in then?
They worked, and I couldn't reach production either at the moment.
What did Mr. Armstrong do next?
He started drifting aimlessly and took off his mask in a panic. I couldn't really understand what was happening at the moment.
Were the safety divers sent in then?
Well, you see, that's the thing. They weren't. Only once Rob had completely stopped moving. But by then, it was much too late. To this day, I haven't a clue as to where the dogs were or as to what I'm sent soon.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. I have no further questions.
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Patel. I would like to talk about your relationship that you had with the defendant. You actually talked to them a lot, correct?
I didn't,
And they mentioned Rob Armstrong quite a bit.
ever so often, of
They talked about him in safety briefings.
course.
They talked about him in discussion and sabotaging.
Sure,
In fact, they were always talking about Mr. Armstrong. In every conversation that they talked about seemed to turn into Mr. Armstrong.
you could say that.
I could say that, but I'm asking about what you could say. Would you say that it seemed like every conversation turned to talk about Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, I would.
Well, not just talking about Mr. Armstrong, talking about how to get revenge on Mr. Armstrong. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about what the defendant might have meant by that. Because as the saboteur, the show had set sabotages that he was supposed to do, correct?
That's right, there were.
Now, let's go into what those sabotages were. One of them was giving goggles to a contestant to wear. Well, we're adding some hot sauce to some food.
Yeah, to eat anything with food makes me laugh. Sorry.
No worries. And in that final challenge, there are 3 set sabotages by the production staff, correct?
That would be correct.
One of those was adding extra weight to a backpack.
Objection, Your Honor, to a lack of personal knowledge. May I explain?
Yes.
Your Honor, the opposing counsel just elicited the fact that these sabotages were set up by production, not Mr. Patel himself. So this line of questioning goes a bit beyond his personal knowledge as the challenge designer. He's not the sabotage designer.
Yeah, it's fine. That's sabotage design.
Yes, he has already stated that he's the challenge designer and knows what happened within the challenges. Part of that challenge and the main conceit of the show is that it's all about the sabotage. In every single challenge, the contestants have a sabotage, and he would have personal knowledge of what that was.
Your Honor, on direct examination, Mr. Patel testified to how he designs the challenges. But the production team is the one that does all of the sabotages. That's not Mr. Patel. So we just asked that opposing counsel tailor their line of question just a little bit to conform to the specifics of the challenge.
Counsel, can I ask you, was this witness present during those challenges?
Yes, the witness was present during.
Can they saw what those challenges?
You saw what this challenge
Saw
was.
how some challenges ended?
Yes,
And I think it's a,
Yes, Your Honor.
thank you, asked that.
yes, of course. You were on set and watched those challenges, correct?
Always.
You saw what those challenges were.
Yeah, sure.
You saw the sabotages that the contestants had in those sabotages.
That's correct.
Now I'm gonna re-ask my question. One of those sabotages on the final episode was adding extra weight to the backpack.
That's correct.
Another one was giving the contestant the wrong shoe size.
Yeah.
And the last one was giving the contestants a scent around that out. Correct.
That's all true.
Now I'm going to talk about the actions of the defendant compared to those. Because the defendant was seen pouring powder into one of those scuba masks on the day before the challenge time, correct?
I remember.
And this certainly wasn't one of those agreed upon sabotages.
No, not that I know.
There were two other saboteurs in that same season, correct?
Never mind.
You've never seen them pour powder into any substance or touch anything of that nature.
Not in my mind. No.
And the only time that someone did this was on the day that Rob Armstrong passed.
That's correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
No redirect. May Mr. Patel step down?
Yes.
Your Honor, while you guys wrap up your notes, is it all right if I set up a demotion within the law? The defense calls Gray Marlowe to be stand. Good morning. Could you please introduce yourself?
Good morning. My name is Gray Marlowe.
What do you do for work, Miss Marlowe?
I'm a board certified sports medicine physician. I currently run my own consulting firm called The Wounded Warriors. I actually took inspiration from my time being the physician for the Warriors. That's right, I was Steph Curry's physician.
Well, Dr. Marlowe, before you became Steph Curry's physician, how'd you become a doctor?
I grew up in a sports crazy household. Dad was really hoping for the next LeBron, but I was born with so little hand-eye coordination that I set my sights on sports medicine instead.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to med school at the College of Medicine, at Bay Ridge College of Medicine in New Jersey. And then I did my forensic pathology fellowship at the University of Michigan School of Medicine.
How are you involved in today's case?
I was asked by the studio of the saboteurs to review Mr. Armstrong's cause of death and Dr. Hartley's findings.
So how did you conduct your review?
I did what we call a holistic review. I examined Mr. Armstrong's body, conducted tests on several blood and tissue samples. I also reviewed the official autopsy, toxicology report, and Dr. Hartley's medical examiner report. I also reviewed the footage of Mr. Armstrong's final dive and Dr. Hartley's corresponding notes.
Is this method of review reliable?
Of course, it's the gold standard in our field.
And Dr. Marlowe, did you reliably apply this method?
I did.
So then let's get into your review. Was there anything that you and Dr. Hartley agreed on?
Of course. Dr. Hartley and I both agreed that Mr. Armstrong died due to drowning that was induced by hypoxia. That's a lack of oxygen.
Was there anything that you and Dr. Hartley disagreed on?
Yes. Well, we agreed that Mr. Armstrong drowned due to a lack of oxygen. We disagree on what caused that lack of oxygen. Dr. Hartley believes it was a chemical called oxalic acid, but I don't believe there was enough oxalic acid to induce that lack of oxygen.
Objection, Your Honor, under Rule 702A. Have you heard it? Your Honor, the witness just testified that they don't believe that there was enough oxalic acid found in Mr. Armstrong to induce hypoxia. We actually have it on a good faith basis that this witness doesn't have the necessary background training or expertise to testify about oxalic acid today. As they mentioned on direct examination, they're a doctor of sports medicine. And given the chance to voir dire the witness, I believe I can just lay this for the court.
Hold on it for a second. Give response.
Yes, Your Honor, we sufficiently met prong 702A, which is sufficient knowledge. Dr. Marlowe talked about her medical certification. While she is a sports medicine physician currently, she has a certification in medicine, and she's gone through fellowships that discuss oxalic acid. She certainly testified that she has the knowledge to discuss whether or not Mr. Armstrong ingested oxalic acid to a fatal burn.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Let's go on here.
Yes, Your Honor.
You know, this is like up your cross.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Doc.
Good afternoon.
I want to start by talking about your qualifications. Because like I said a moment ago, you're a doctor of sports medicine.
That's right. I currently practice in sports medicine.
Right, ma'am, you testify in court cases?
That's true.
You testify in court cases about sports injury?
That's right.
You testify in cases about athlete safety protocol?
That's right.
Ma'am, you've never testified in a court case about poison before.
Not in a court case, no.
You've never been hired to review a case dealing with oxalic acid.
Not oxalic acid specifically.
Ma'am, you've never undergone a training program to deal with poison.
No.
You've never undergone a training program to deal with oxalic acid.
No.
Right, the only oxalic acid experience you have was reviewing a couple of case studies before today.
That's right. I reviewed a couple case studies about oxalic acid, along with all of the other materials that I mentioned earlier.
Ma'am, I want to be really clear about these case studies. Because in these case studies, oxalic acid was swallowed by the victim.
That's right. But I only used that to come to one part of my finding that I listed in my report.
Well, ma'am, I know you're saying that you used it to come to your conclusion, but that's why I want to be clear. Because oxalic acid swallowing presents different than oxalic acid inhalation.
That's true, sir, but that isn't all I based my conclusion off of. That part about the inhalation versus ingestion, that was only for one specific aspect of my report, not for the entire conclusion that that he inhaled less than a toxic amount.
Ma'am, I'm just talking about your knowledge of oxalic acid. All of your knowledge from oxalic acid comes from the case studies about swallowing oxalic acid.
No.
Ma'am, is it your testimony today that you reviewed other materials about oxalic acid that were not in these case studies?
That's right. I reviewed Dr. Hartley's report that contained information about oxalic acid, along with those case studies.
Ma'am, I know you reviewed Dr. Hartley's report, but your research before you testified today was those case studies.
Yes,
And in the case studies, oxalic acid was swallowed.
that's correct.
You agree swallowing oxalic acid presents differently than inhaling oxalic acid.
That's correct.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
And you'd agree that you've never reviewed a case study to deal with inhaling oxalic acid.
I haven't.
And you'd agree that Mr. Armstrong inhaled oxalic acid.
He did.
Your Honor, at this time, we re-raise our 702A objection. As the witness testified, they've never reviewed a case study to deal with inhaling oxalic acid poisoning, and that's what happened today. Mr. Armstrong inhaled oxalic acid, not swallowed it. Furthermore, they have no background experience in poison or oxalic acid. So we ask that they not be allowed to testify about anything to do with oxalic acid or poison.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Marlowe is a board certified physician. She has an MD and she's had 20 years in forensic analysis and biochemistry. In addition to that, Dr. Marlowe has reviewed other studies related to oxalic acid, and she's testified more to exhaustion rather than the effects of oxalic acid. And that this goes to weight balance stability, whether or not she can testify to poison.
Okay, so here's what, she did testify in one here that, the ingestion of oxalic acid is only one part of her conclusion. If you think that that is a large part of it, if you think that that's what she's basing her entire conclusion off, of, is that ingestion versus addiction re-raise. If that's not the case, though, then I would do my points. But for now, would be good. But you can re-raise if you want to, if you think that conclusion based on that, please.
Yes, Your Honor, just to be clear, if the witness talks about oxalic acid inhalation or any of its symptoms, then I can re-raise?
No, you can re-raise if you think that the overall conclusion is very much based off of just the issue between the inhalation versus ingestion. But if you think that, like, if she's just talking about oxalic acid in general, based on what she's read before, what she saw in her report, then it's fine. She just can't. The ingestion versus inhalation aspect, if there's a large portion of conclusion, then based on that differentiation of that, then it's,
Yes, Your Honor.
is that clear? Am I-
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, that we can do.
Yes, Your Honor. Dr. Marlowe, I believe we left off with you describing the difference between what you and Dr. Hartley disagree on.
Dr. Hartley and I disagreed on what caused the lack of oxygen. Dr. Hartley believes it was a chemical called oxalic acid, but I don't believe there was enough oxalic acid in his system to induce that lack of oxygen.
So let's talk about whether or not it was a chemical. How much oxalic acid do you believe that Mr. Armstrong ingested?
I believe that Mr. Armstrong ingested under a gram of oxalic acid. That's a non-toxic amount to humans.
How much did Dr. Hartley?
Dr. Hartley believed that Mr. Armstrong ingested over a gram of oxalic.
Objection, Your Honor, at this time. Your Honor, we have on a good faith basis that the inhalation of oxalic acid presents less obvious symptoms. That's why this witness is testifying that there was less oxalic acid than what Dr. Hartley reported. Because they only reviewed oxalic acid swallowing, where the symptoms are more obvious to detect, they are coming to the conclusion that there were less oxalic acid. However, when taken into the context of inhalation versus swallowing, it's clear that they just don't have enough education to testify.
Your Honor, may I respond?
Yeah, I'm a little confused on one aspect. You guys both keep saying that this big ingested oxalic acid, from my understanding.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so you've just been accidentally saying just.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
So Dr. Marlowe, why was your number different from Dr. Hartley?
If Mr. Armstrong had inhaled over a gram of oxalic acid, we would have seen more severe symptoms. But that isn't supported by what I saw. I brought along a little experiment and a chart to help lay out those differences.
Your Honor, may Dr. Marlowe step down to show us the difference?
Yes.
So Dr. Marlowe, what is all of this on the paper?
Well, these are two samples of blood. And these are two samples of baking soda. They're going to be used to represent our oxalic acid activity.
So what happens when you administer these two different amounts?
Well, this amount is under a gram. If we administer it, we see that there's a little bit of a reaction, but it's non-toxic. But we do that amount that's over a gram that Dr. Hartley believes he inhaled, we see a much more severe reaction. There's a clear difference.
How does this apply to Mr. Armstrong?
Well, if Mr. Armstrong had inhaled over a gram of oxalic acid, we see a more severe reaction.
Your
That,
objection at this time, to the same grounds as before under section 2A. And also under rule 403 for the demonstrative, that's more misleading than it is probative.
I'm gonna overrule the cemetery, but let's talk about the board.
Yes, Your Honor. The reaction that we saw here was substantially different. We don't know if this is actually what would look like within the blood. And showing such a vastly different reaction, it was gonna mislead the jury into believing that 1 gram causes next to nothing, when we heard today that 11 times the safe amount was found in Mr. Armstrong. And that over a gram is gonna cause this huge reaction that was shown in the second.
Responsible.
Yes, Your Honor, 403 has a high bar. It must be substantially more prejudicial than it is probative. And as opposing counsel pointed out, this is exactly our point, that a small difference can make a noticeable amount, that you would expect more severe symptoms for over 1 gram than under 1 gram. And as we saw with the demonstration, under 1 gram still had some reaction, but compared to the over 1 gram, there was an obvious amount. And if I may proffer, Dr. Moore is going to point out why this different happens and compare it to Mr. Armstrong.
Yes, Your Honor. We do believe that this is substantially more misleading than it is probative, because like we saw in this cups, the reaction was vastly different. When this may not always be the case with oxalic acid, because it's a spectrum. It's not over a gram, there's a huge reaction, and under a gram, there's a little reaction. That's just not the issue at play today. That's not how oxalic acid presents itself. So showing it to the jury and telling them if it was over 1 gram, we would have seen this huge reaction in Mr. Armstrong's body, when that's just not the case. That is substantially more misleading than probative.
Final response.
Yes, Your Honor. Again, the bar is substantially more prejudicial than probative, and it's certainly probative for the members of the jury to understand that there is a difference. And as for Mr. Armstrong's reaction, Dr. Marlowe will explain how this specifically applies to Dr. Armstrong. Not that this was the exact reaction that occurred in his body, but a notice that the difference in gram affects your symptoms 8%. And this goes towards weight, not disability. If opposing counsel wants to talk about how this difference affects in a range, feel free to do so in cross-examination.
So what we'll do is we'll, for now, let, if you don't see that there is a specific 1-to-1 kind of conclusion or comparison drawn between this demonstrative and how oxalic acid might actually affect the victim, re-raise. But for now, this for demonstrative purposes to show how much of a difference 1 gram may feel like that is. But limiting instruction, this has nothing to do with something else.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
So Dr. Marlowe, how does the reaction apply to Mr. Armstrong?
Mr. Armstrong's blood certainly isn't baking soda and vinegar, but what this can show us is how a small difference in amount, it can cause a much more severe reaction. In Mr. Armstrong's case, if he inhaled over a gram of oxalic acid, we'd see more severe symptoms. I brought along a chart to help lay out those differences specifically.
So Dr. Marlowe, let's take a look at this chart. If you don't mind helping me understand. So I see 3 columns here. Can I be explaining what exactly it is that we're looking at?
These 2 columns are what we'd expect to find if Mr. Armstrong inhaled over a gram of oxalic acid versus what I actually found in Mr. Armstrong. And then this 3rd column is what else could explain that difference.
So Dr. Marlowe, let's start with the first symptom of the mouth. What would you expect for over 1 gram?
We'd expect to see corrosive chemical burns around the mouth.
Did Mr. Armstrong have these burns?
No, he had abrasions around his mouth, but not those necessarily consistent with severe chemical burns.
What else could have caused these abrasions?
Well, it could have been caused by Mr. Armstrong violently ripping off his mask during the underwater challenge.
What about the second symptom for the lungs?
Well, regarding the lungs, we'd start to see the death of cell tissue.
Did Mr. Armstrong have dead cell tissue?
No, while there was oxalic acid present in his lungs, there was no dead cell tissue.
What does the presence of oxalic acid mean for the amount that Mr. Armstrong inhaled?
Well, it means that he'd have to inhale less than a gram, enough to show up in his system, but not enough to induce cell death.
What about the kidneys?
Well, regarding the kidneys, we'd expect to see an abnormal amount of calcium oxalate crystals.
Dr. Marlowe, for those of us who aren't physicians, what are calcium oxalate crystals?
Calcium oxalate crystals are a crystalline structure that forms in the body. Sometimes they can form due to a chemical, and sometimes they can form naturally.
Did Mr. Armstrong have these crystals?
Mr. Armstrong had sparse calcium oxalate crystals, not consistent with the abnormal amount that we'd expect to see.
How can someone have sparse crystals?
There are common biological phenomena in post-mortem kidneys, especially when someone is dehydrated. Given the rigor of the challenge, the presence of sparse crystals didn't immediately point me towards poisoning. It could have been natural causes instead.
So, Dr. Marlowe, with all these symptoms in mind, what does this mean for the amount that Mr. Armstrong inhaled?
If Mr. Armstrong had inhaled over a gram of oxalic acid, we'd expect to see more severe symptoms. But that just isn't supported by what I found.
Thank you, Dr. Marlowe. You can take this. Now, Mr. Armstrong ingested less than 1 gram. How does that impact Dr. Hartley's findings?
An amount under 1 gram wouldn't be toxic or dangerous to humans, meaning that it wouldn't have caused Mr. Armstrong to drown.
Ma'am, if it wasn't the chemical, what else could have caused Mr. Armstrong to drown?
Exhaustion.
Did you review any evidence that Mr. Armstrong was exhausted?
I did. During my review of the underwater footage, Mr. Armstrong's behavior didn't align with chemical irritation, but instead, it aligned more with exhaustion.
How did Mr. Armstrong's behavior align with exhaustion?
At first, Mr. Armstrong is swimming smoothly, but then he starts to slow down. If it was oxalic acid, we'd expect to see a sudden, erratic shift in behavior. But this was gradual, a clear sign of exhaustion.
So, Dr. Marlowe, taking all of these facts into consideration, what do you believe caused Mr. Armstrong to drown?
We know that Mr. Armstrong drowned due to a lack of oxygen. There's evidence to suggest that was because of exhaustion, but there certainly isn't enough evidence to suggest a finding of oxalic acid poisoning.
Thank you, Dr. Marlowe. We have no further questions, Your Honor. Would opposing counsel like me to speak into that?
Yes, please. Yes. Yes, Your Honor. Hello, Dr. Farley.
Hello again.
I'd like to start by talking about what makes a good investigation. Because you'd agree, a good investigation is unbiased,
That's true.
and a good investigation has a knowledgeable investigator.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to talk about if either of those were true for your investigation. Because, or let's start with whether or not it was unbiased. Because you said on direct examination, you were asked by the production company to testify, to come and review this court case, correct?
That's correct.
Well, ma'am, I want to be clear. You were asked by your friend.
Yes, Terry and Paradigm, the president of the studios. We know each other.
Right, you know each other. He offered to create a reality TV show for you.
That's true.
You're really excited about this new opportunity.
I know. I mean, my consulting job keeps me plenty busy, but it's going to be exciting to try something new.
Well, ma'am, this trial is putting your show in danger.
That's true.
Depending on the outcome of this trial today, your show might not get off the ground.
That's true.
So then I'm going to talk about if you have enough knowledge to testify about poison.
All right.
Because like you said on direct examination, you're a doctor of sports medicine.
That is true.
You don't investigate poison.
Not on the regular.
You've never testified in a case to deal with oxalic acid before.
No.
You have no specialized training in poison.
No, but I am an expert in biochemistry.
Right, and you're an expert in the biochemistry of sports.
No,
Yes, and you're an expert in the biochemistry of metabolic flux.
that's true.
Right, that's the biochemistry of sports. In sports.
That's true, but also general biochemistry, sir.
So then, I want to talk about if you overlooked poison in today's case. Because you reviewed a toxicology report, right?
I did.
Do you recognize that if I were to show it to you?
I would.
Your Honor, permission to approach opposing counsel, and then the witness in turn with what's already in evidence as exhibit 4. Yes. And I believe you already have a first month. This is the toxicology report for Mr. Armstrong.
That's right.
You ran a similar test.
Yes,
You got the same results.
I did.
If you flip to page 2 of this report, it says oxalic acid levels were found high in Mr. Armstrong's mouth.
Sorry, what line are you referring to?
Under tissue distribution of oxalic acid, it was found in his mouth.
Yes,
It was found in his throat,
that's correct.
and it was found in his lungs.
Yes,
Now, you agree that the only way it could have gotten there was if Mr. Armstrong inhaled oxalic acid.
that's right. That's why I believe he inhaled less than a gram.
Well, ma'am, I know you're telling us that he inhaled less than a gram, but you agree he inhaled oxalic acid.
Yes,
Well, I'll just talk about what some of those symptoms might look like. Because you reviewed oxalic acid warning label before coming to court today.
I did.
Your Honor, permission to approach opposing counsel and the witness in turn of exhibit 13. Yes. I can take that first one back again. This is that oxalic, first copy. This is that label.
Yes,
It's very accurate.
yes.
It hasn't been altered since you last reviewed it.
No.
Your Honor, the state moves exhibit 13, and as per stipulation 10, all objections are waived. Stopping.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ma'am, this is a warning label for a bottle of oxalic acid.
It is.
It says, warning, harmful if swallowed.
That's correct.
It says may cause respiratory irritation.
Yes,
It says if swallowed, call a poison cell.
yes. Or a doctor or physician.
Right now, well, I'm going to talk about if what was in this bottle could have caused Mr. Armstrong to drown.
All right.
Because like we've already agreed, you agreed he inhaled oxalic acid.
Yes,
You agreed that oxalic acid likely caused respiratory distress for Mr. Armstrong.
it's a possibility.
Right, ma'am, do you believe it's likely?
It's a possibility, but not the only potential cause.
Ma'am, that's a yes to my question. You believe oxalic acid likely caused respiratory distress in Mr. Armstrong?
Yes,
You believe that this respiratory distress was a likely reason that he ripped his mask off underwater?
it's a possible reason.
It is a likely reason.
Sure.
That's a yes, you agree it's a likely reason.
Yes.
Thank you for your time, Doctor. I have no further questions, Your Honor. Commissioner Coach, yes.
No, Your Honor, no redirect. We just asked that Dr. Marlowe be allowed to step down.
Yeah, before we proceed, we would just like a quick time check.
You have 7 minutes and 21 seconds.
Thank you. With that, the defense would like to call Charlie Martin.
Are we on the laws for the 35 minutes?
We've got 50 minutes.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the board.
Charlie,
I'd like the members of the jury a chance to get to know you. So where do you live?
actually live right here, Midlands. You know, I've lived here my whole life. My whole family's here.
And what do you do for work?
I work at the local ice hockey rink. The manager there now. Mostly just down the ice, make sure the kids practice go up.
So, Mr. Martin, why are you here today?
I was on season 10. Sad source. When Rob was on.
Let's talk about your experience on the South Shores. How did you first join?
Actually, it was my mom. We used to sit down on the couch and watch game shows together. It's her idea. Throw my hat in the ring, so did. What I didn't realize though was once I signed that contract, it wasn't about my life anymore. It had become a story.
What do you mean by that?
Producers control when we ate, when we slept, who we picked fights with. I mean, they'd wake us up at the crack of dawn and they'd have us filming until after midnight. Crazy challenges all the time. It was exhausting.
Did this affect the other competitors?
It certainly affected me. I was exhausted. One girl on set, she had fainted. Another guy, he had to be sent to the hospital because of dehydration. It's brutal.
How did season 2 end for you?
I was betrayed by Rob Armstrong in the final chapter. And then I was kicked off the show.
Did you ever return?
Yeah. For season 10.
And how did that happen?
Production called me up. Riley Kay, the producer, said that they were having a reunion season for season 10. She also told me that Rob wasn't gonna be there. So I agreed to go.
Were you looking forward to rejoining?
At first, I was. I was looking at my shot of redemption. I was gonna play the game great this time. But I got there and I saw Rob and I knew it was happening all over again.
Let's talk about your experience on set. What were the conditions like?
Rough. Sleep. Stressful 24/7. It was impossible to sleep. They wouldn't even let us eat till we finished the challenges. Stressful. I couldn't even call home. What were they to?
What were those challenges like this week?
It was anything from running, swimming, climbing to eating disgusting food.
And how are the other contestants over them?
Rob seemed pretty exhausted. Yeah, eye bags, yawning. Seemed like he had trouble focusing.
Objection, Your Honor, is speculation. This time, I may be heard.
I'm responsible.
Your Honor, this goes to Mr. Martin's sense of how Mr. Rob Armstrong was doing. It also goes to Rule 803. It was Mr. Armstrong's physical condition.
Okay, can you respond to?
Yes, Your Honor, 803.3 is an exception to hearsay. We don't believe there's any specific statement that has come onto the record yet. As it stands, the witness has testified that Mr. Armstrong appeared exhausted, had eye bags. We're okay with that testimony. We believe that's rationally based in its perception. However, his testimony that it seems like Rob Armstrong was unable to focus is textbook speculation, and it requires him to delve into the mindset of Rob Armstrong.
Your Honor, if I may be heard. Mr. Martin isn't delving into the mindset. Using the word see implies that he's using his rationally based perception based off of what Rob Armstrong was experiencing, also based off of his experience, because he has also said that he felt pretty exhausted.
Well, I think that's what the issue is here, is that you're applying specific perception to his own experiences and applying it to somebody else's. If you have any testimony as to how this person was having trouble focusing, that would be okay, but as that last portion, the answer is sure.
I can rephrase, Your Honor.
It's not about rephrasing, it's the answer, so I think you could ask a question specific as to what observations was made to say that Rob seemed like he was having trouble focusing.
Yes, yes, Your Honor. We'll just strike the event. Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Martin, did you talk to Mr. Armstrong during chapter?
I did. Even told me like towards the end that he was running on empty and that he didn't know how much longer he could show anymore.
Objection, Your Honor, to hearsay. Specifically, the last statement that Mr. Armstrong didn't know how much longer he could do the show anymore. We believe that first statement that he was running on empty and it falls under Rule 8033 as a statement of then existing state of mind. But this second statement doesn't fall under that exception. It's hearsay.
Your Honor, this once again goes to Mr. Martin's present sense impression of how Mr. Armstrong was doing. You'll hear following questions that Mr. Martin made actions based off of how Mr. Armstrong was doing his smart sabotage.
So 803.1 is what you're saying,
Yes, sir.
but this statement was coming from Armstrong, right? Not this witness.
No, you're not correct.
So it wouldn't be 803.1, that statement.
Not for this witness, no.
Do you have another response to that?
I would also say that's not being offered for the truth of the matter, sir.
Okay, Dr. Trump, can this fine?
Yes, Your Honor, we believe that this statement actually is going to be taken by the jury for the truth. The counsel has made it very clear today that it's their contention that Mr. Armstrong overexerted himself, that he was tired, exhausted, and that's why he died. They cannot ring the bell. Having this statement come onto the record that Mr. Armstrong could not do the show anymore implies that he was physically overexerted and, more culpable to being overexerted and drowning on due to natural causes. The jury's going to take it for the truth, no matter what the counsel says that their intention is.
You also were using to say that Mr. Martin was in communication with Mr. Armstrong about the challenges and the conditions of the show.
Do you statement that he was exhausted and could go further to show the indication?
It was within Mr. Martin's communications with Mr. Armstrong about how the conditions of the show were.
Yes, Your Honor, move to strike.
Yes.
Mr. Martin, we've heard today that you had a role as a saboteur. Can you tell us what that means?
Right. It was my job basically make challenges harder for the contestant so they would be eliminated. It just made the show more interesting.
And what did you sabotage?
For example, one of my sabotages, I took away Rob's respirator, but it didn't really seem to matter. He finished anyways, and he actually won that one.
I'd like to move on to the morning of the final challenge. How did your day start?
I woke up out of nerves pretty early. Then I ran into Rob in the hallway. Told me that I would never beat him. That the other contestants, he can convince the other contestants to eliminate me later that night.
So what did you do?
I decided to sabotage him again. Look, it wasn't personal, it was just strategy. I needed him out of the game so I could stay in.
How did you sabotage Mr. Armstrong?
I put bleach.
How much did you put?
The idea was I needed to smell bad so he wouldn't wear the mask at all. I measured it with the kitchen scale, 1/2 gram.
Now, we've also heard today that you had PDF on your phone, Sage, related to upsales accident. Is this true?
Yes, I was told that was,
Why was it on?
like I said, I'm a manager at the hockey rink. I have this manual that I downloaded a bunch of PDFs on cleaning supplies for my employees, just to give them cleaning instructions. I sent that out to them, but I didn't read the documents.
Did you know oxalic acid would be on the set? Is that a choice?
No. Of course not. I didn't even think it was a common chemical. I have no idea why they would have it.
Let's move on to the day that Bob Armstrong died. Were you competing that day?
I was. I needed immunity, so I tried my best, but I went on it.
Was that challenge difficult?
The hardest one so far. Running and climbing, swimming. Go, go, go type of challenge. Stopping.
How's Mr. Armstrong doing that challenge?
I don't really know. I was focused on something. I think he was behind me at some point.
What happened during the dive portion of that challenge?
Rob didn't take his mask off. Look, I have no idea why he would do that. Just know I came out of the water and I looked around and Rob wasn't there. And then I did something wrong.
What happened?
First, I don't know. I just saw people standing there on the beach, just looking. I have no idea why the safety divers weren't going into help.
They'd be smart. I have your Yes, Your Honor.
May I begin? Good afternoon, Mr. Mark.
Yeah.
Before I start, I want to pick up right where you left off with something you said about a PDF sheet about oxalic acid. You remember saying that, right?
That's right.
I wrote it down. You said that you work at a hockey rink and you might have downloaded it to send it out to, your coworkers, right?
That's right, please.
There is it your testimony today that that is why you downloaded the oxalic acid safety sheet?
That's why I was on my phone. Seeing it.
That's why it was on your phone, sir. Is it your testimony today that you know why this was on your phone?
No, I had no idea it was even on my phone before I was told.
So, sir, you're telling us this story about hockey and that you must have downloaded it because it was for your coworkers. You didn't know it was on your phone. That's your testimony today.
I didn't know it was in the batch of documents. I just downloaded the batch of documents. Must have been. I was told later that it was on my phone.
Great, sir. So just to be very clear, it's important we get this for the record. You're telling us in court today that you are aware of a reason why this document existed on your phone. That's your testimony.
Yes.
Sir, you remember preparing an affidavit before today's trial?
I did.
In this affidavit, you swore to be truthful.
Yes.
You swore to include all relevant information about this case.
That's correct.
You'd recognize it if I showed it to you today?
Absolutely.
Your Honor, Commissioner opposed the witness in his affidavit. Sir, this is your affidavit, correct?
That's my name right.
At the last page, that is your signature.
The moment.
Of course.
Yep.
Sir, I want you to read along silently while I read along. Lines 140 to 144. Before giving this statement, I was told it should contain everything I knew that might be relevant regarding the exhibits discussed here, and I followed those instructions. I also understand that I can and must update this affidavit, and if I remember anything new about the exhibits discussed herein until the moment before I testify in this case. I read that correctly, right?
That's correct.
Now I want to flip to lines 60 through 72. That's where you discussed exhibit 14, oxalic acid sheet we've been talking about, right?
That's correct.
Sir, nowhere in this discussion of exhibit 14 do you mention anything about downloading this for your job.
No.
Sir, nowhere do you mention that you might have needed it for your work.
No.
Nowhere do you mention that it might be that you have a reason for downloading this document.
I didn't have a reason for downloading this document. It was just in a file of all the cleaning supplies.
So what you're telling us is that there was a file of cleaning supplies that you think this document must have existed.
Must have.
Sir, you did not include that in your sworn statement when you discussed exhibit 14.
No.
Sir, so you didn't feel it was relevant to include that in your affidavit today?
I didn't know for sure.
You didn't know for sure that it was relevant to include why this exhibit was on your phone.
No, I wasn't sure it was on my phone, how I was told.
All right, sir. Thanks for clearing that up. I'm approaching your retreat. Well then, sir, I'm gonna pick up where you left off. You said something else interesting about why you sabotaged Mr. Armstrong. You said it wasn't personal, right?
That's right.
So
Part of the games.
let's talk about whether or not that's true. For the past 5 years, you have gotten paid online.
That's right.
You have received death threats.
That's correct.
And it's all because of Rob Armstrong, right?
Because I got humiliated the last challenge.
Right, sir. Like you said, Rob Armstrong betrayed you, right?
In the game, yes.
And he humiliated you on national television, right?
That's right.
You want revenge on Mr. Armstrong, true?
Correct. That's how the witness is.
Sir, you wanted revenge, right?
That's right.
And then in January of this year, you got your opportunity to get revenge, right?
Yeah, I got a call about coming back to the film.
Right, sir. In January of this year, you were cast on the saboteurs alongside Mr. Armstrong.
That's correct.
Now, you said on direct examination, you said that the reason you agreed to go was because you were told Rob Armstrong wasn't going to be there, right?
That's right.
I want to talk about whether or not that's true. I'm approaching opposing counsel. And permission to approach the witness in turn with what's in evidence as exhibit 18C.
Yes.
Approaching witness. The 18C, that's smart. Sir, these are some texts that you got from Rob Armstrong a few days after you were cast in the saboteurs, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Sir, he says, in case you forget, I win, you lose.
Yeah, that's what it said.
That he can't wait for the internet to go off on you again.
That's right.
That you're going to humiliate yourself all over. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Let's talk about what you did in response. I'm approaching opposing counsel and permission to approach the witness with what's in evidence as exhibit 14. Approaching witness. Sir, this is that oxalic acid safety sheet we were talking about, right?
yeah, that's what it looks like.
Sir, it says that oxalic acid is toxic.
Could you point me to that?
Sure, sir. On line 16, highly toxic if swallowed.
That's right.
It says it may result in damage to the nervous system on line 14.
Yeah, that's right.
Line 18 says it can be fatal, right?
Possibly.
Right, sir, possibly fatal.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know this was downloaded to your phone on January 8th at 9:46 in the morning.
That's correct.
Sir, that is 10 hours after Mr. Armstrong texted you. That taunted you, right?
It's close to.
So it's your story then that the sheet all about oxalic acid just appeared on your phone 10 hours after you taunted you, right?
Well, I told you why I was.
Right, sir. So what you told us today is that it happened to be a document within a bunch of other documents, right?
Right. I was just young.
Well, sir, it is your story that an hour and a half after you downloaded the sheet, you agreed to go back on the show, right?
That's right. I guess that's how it lines up.
Let's talk about what you did when you were there. You remember being able to text one of the producers on the show, right?
Yes, that's right.
You'd recognize those texts before today.
I would.
I'm approaching opposing counsel and the witness in term or approaching opposing counsel with 19B. And permission to approach the witness as well. I believe your honor already has a copy of 19. It's mobile. Sure, so thank you. I'm reading it's 14 and 18. So 19B, those are texts between you and Ms. K, right?
Yes, that's right.
They appear fair and accurate.
That's correct.
They haven't been changed or altered in any way.
No, it doesn't.
Statement 19.
No objection. Sir, on March 29th, you asked Ms. K, where do they keep the cleaning supplies in this case? Not just the mops and buckets, but the chemical, right?
That's right.
You said you had a plan.
Yes.
Talk about what that plan was. Yes, sir, you retrieved some chemicals from that supply closet that she told you about, right?
That's right. I did.
You recognize the label for those chemicals today?
I would.
I'm approaching counsel and permission to approach the witness with what's in evidence, this exhibit 13. Minutes. Retrieving next into the witness. Sir, this is the label for the bottle that you got from the supply. Is it true?
Yes,
Sir, this label says warning on it, right?
yeah, right there.
It says harmful if swallowed,
That's right.
causes severe skin burns and eye damage.
Yes,
It says if swallowed, immediately call a poison center or doctor or physician.
yes, that's what it says.
So the words on this label have not changed.
No,
They're the same words that were on this label when you put this into Mr. Armstrong's mask.
that's right.
When you put this into Rob Armstrong's mask, you could read warning.
Yes,
You could read severe skin burns.
yes,
You could read harmful if swallowed.
that's right.
You can read every single word on this label and you still made the decision to put this into Mr. Armstrong's mask. Did I get that?
Yeah, that's right. I thought it smelled bad. I would put a little bit in.
It's almost a little bit in, but sir, you would agree, you could read every word on this label and you still chose to put it into Rob Armstrong's mask.
Yes,
Thank you for your time, Mr. Barnett. I've got nothing further, just permission to approach Mr. 13.
yes.
No, Your Honor. At this time, we ask for the witness to step down. With this, yes, with this, Your Honor, the defense rests their case.
I'm assuming not.
We've got 28 minutes, so probably like a 1 minute to rearrange tables and then start.
Sure. You guys.
Yes, just one moment while I set up, one parking lot.
That's really.
Yes, Your Honor.
Wish to proceed, Your Honor. May it please the court. Opposing counsel. Members of the jury. The pain. Plan. And the poison. It's the second to last challenge of the season, and Mr. Armstrong is getting ready to die. He grabs his scuba mask and puts it on. But something's wrong. He feels a burning in the back of his throat, but the clock is ticking and people are already diving into the water, so he just makes sure that it's secure. And he dies. By now you know he doesn't come back up. And today we told you why. Because had it not been for the actions of this defendant, Mr. Armstrong would still be here today. And that's why we're here, members of the jury, because today the state of Midlands is charging Charlie Martin with first-degree murder. And what that means is that we had to prove to you that the defendant intentionally poisoned Mr. Armstrong, and that poison caused Mr. Armstrong to drown. We had to prove this to you beyond a reasonable doubt. Today we met our burden. We met our burden because we told you the only reasonable story today. Because instead of believing what's logical, that this toxic poison caused Mr. Armstrong to drown underwater, the defense is asking you to believe that Mr. Armstrong died because he was tired. They're asking you to believe that this great competitor who dove underwater without a respirator mask, just the challenge before, and won, was so tired that he ripped his mask off. Members of the jury, if I was tired underwater with an oxygen supply, I wouldn't take off my oxygen supply and hope someone would save me. I'd keep my oxygen mask on. Why would he take it off? That question wasn't answered by the defense today. Because their case is not reasonable. And it's true. Today, the state has the only burden of proof. We have to prove everything beyond a reasonable doubt. But the key word is reasonable. Mr. Armstrong getting tired and choosing to drown, that's not reasonable. Because we know that the defendant poisoned Mr. Armstrong. And we know that the defendant killed him because of those three simple facts: the pain, plan, and the poison. So first, the pain. Because today we called Indigo Quaid to the stand who told you about the pain. The pain that the defendant felt when he was betrayed. You learned today how the worst moments of the defendant's life were broadcast across the country on national television for everyone to watch and rewatch and laugh. The defendant blamed Mr. Armstrong. So when he got the opportunity to return to the saboteurs, he took it. He took it because he wanted to get revenge. And members of the jury, the defendant tried to tell you that the conditions on the saboteurs were just so awful, that they weren't allowed to sleep, they weren't allowed to eat. Members of the jury, if it's true, why'd he go on it not once, but twice? He was there to get revenge. And that was his plan. Which is our second fact today, because today we called Inspector Rivera to the stand to testify about the plan of the defendant. She shows you this timeline of all of her evidence in today's case. You'll learn how Mr. Armstrong was taunting the defendant. I can't wait for you to humiliate yourself on national television. Well, the defendant got worried. Because the worst moments of his life were going to happen again. Unless he had a plan. So what do you do next? Members of the jury, we don't have to guess because we know. Because just a couple of hours later, the defendant downloaded this Midlands data sheet full of oxalic acid information onto his phone. Everyone agrees in this courtroom that this document was on his phone. We agree that it says it can be fatal. We can agree that it's a respiratory irritant. This is the same poison the defendant admitted to using. As you heard today, how when the police asked him, how did poison get into Mr. Armstrong's system? What did he say? He didn't say, I have no idea. He didn't say, no, it wasn't me. No, he looked the police officers right in the eye and he said, I admit it. I put it in the mask. That brings us to our third point, the poison. Today, Dr. Hartley took the stand and she showed you this oxalic acid warning label, the same warning label that the defendant saw. Members of the jury, if I see something that says, if swallowed, call a poison center, I wouldn't think it's a fun prank to play on national television. And the defendant told you he saw these words, he did it anyway. He tried to tell you, oh, it was under a gram, he measured it with a kitchen scale. Does that make sense? Because half of the witnesses, 3 out of 6 of the witnesses took the stand today and said they saw this defendant pouring a bottle of oxalic acid into a scuba mask. Not one of them saw a scale. They saw a bottle, they saw a mask, and they saw him pouring it. The only one who told you that it was less than a gram was the defendant after he heard an expert testify that that's the magic number in today's case. An expert who's a doctor of sports medicine, who has no poison training. You heard what this poison did to Mr. Armstrong, because make no mistake, it was the reason he drowned. Because both experts agreed. It was found in his mouth. It burned his lungs and his throat. The defendant knew what would happen. The defendant wanted it to happen. The defendant wanted Mr. Armstrong dead. I mean, the text messages, the data sheet, the threats, the warning label, the poison, the confession, members of the jury, evidence like that doesn't stack up against an innocent person. When Mr. Armstrong dove underwater, the defendant knew he would never come up. He would never go home. He would never see his family again. The same defendant who said, I will send him home in a box. If someone tells you who they are, believe them. Find them guilty. Thank you. Athletic counsel, would you like to take this to Montford down?
Yes, please, this is the down. It was the competition.
Sir.
Oh, sorry. Okay. It was the competition, not the chemical. It's the final challenge of season 10 of the Sandstorms. Rob Armstrong has just finished running through the forest, crossing balance beams and climbing rope walls and crawling through a mud pit. And he's been pushed to the limit. The strongest competitor on the team is now lagging behind. With 30 pounds on his back, he takes it off and makes his way to the final part of the challenge. The limit. He looks at it, it's 30 feet deep. He takes a breath and dives, but it doesn't come back. Rob Armstrong was killed by competition, not by a count. Today, prosecution has brought the charge of murder against Charlie Martin. But as you know, they brought with them a burden, being the burden of proof. This burden being the highest the court has to offer means that they have to prove that Mr. Martin killed Rob Armstrong and that he had the intent to do so. For the defense, we had no proof. All we had to do was raise that debt. And we did. Because we showed you 3 things. the conditions, the carelessness, and the consequence. These three things break that reasonable doubt to show you that Rob Armstrong died because he was exhausted. Let's start with the conditions. Today you heard Mr. Martin tell you about the grueling challenges that he and Mr. Armstrong were forced to compete. These tests of strength and endurance strained the competitors, but not just their physical strength. Puzzles and brain games strained the competitors' mental strength, leaving them both physically and mentally exhausted. Not only this, but a lack of sleep, production watching your every move. No connection to the outside world. No one else to talk to. Today you also heard Mr. Patel. He told you about the challenges that he designed and how they were designed to be entertaining. His favorite challenge? Making contestants eat nasty things. These challenges were designed to be entertaining because that's what production wanted. They wanted their ratings. Which brings us to the carelessness. You heard today that Mr. Patel has no safety training, no equipment safety certifications. He's not even first aid certified. But he was the person responsible for keeping contestants safe, for doing wellness checks and safety briefings. Why wouldn't the saboteurs hire someone who was qualified to do these things? Because there wasn't a single person or authority on the set of the saboteurs who cared enough to do so. That's why they let Mr. Armstrong swim without a respirator. That's why they cleared him when he showed up to compete with iPads. And when Mr. Armstrong dove into that lagoon for the final challenge, where were the divers to save him the second he started to struggle? They were waiting because the cameras were still open. Prosecution's witness, Mr. Quaid, the host of the saboteurs, told you in detail about how the entire show was surrounded by sabotage and competition. Mr. Martin also told you about these sabotages, about how they were made to prevent challenges from being a challenge, or making it nearly impossible for them to do it at all. Taking away Mr. Armstrong's respirator, or putting more weight in their backpacks. All of these things showed the conditions and the carelessness that led to the consequence, the death of Rob Armstrong. But before we get to that, what did the prosecution have to say? First, they showed you this. And they tried to tell you that because Mr. Martin had a PDF saved on his phone, that meant he wanted to kill Mr. Armstrong. But what does it actually mean? Nothing. Why would Mr. Martin wait to use a bottle of acid that he didn't know was going to be on set to kill Mr. Armstrong? Why not wait until it was nighttime? Why not put it on his pillow or in his water? Why do it on national television? Members of the jury, it sounds unreasonable because it is unreasonable. And it certainly isn't true. Mr. Martin didn't plan to kill Mr. Armstrong with a bottle of acid. He didn't plan to kill anyone. Our witness, Dr. Marlowe, showed you that the acid in Mr. Armstrong's mask was below a lethal amount. Despite what the prosecution has to say, we've shown that the acid in his mask was not sufficient to kill him. Even Mr. Martin came to you and he told you the truth. He was honest. He said, I put the acid in the mask. He said, I took the bottle of acid. So when you're asking yourself to trust, remember that what Mr. Martin said aligns with the evidence that came today. The prosecution was to believe that he's some sort of cold-blooded killer who was out for revenge. But like I said before, he was honest with you. He told you the truth. And what he said today shows that he had no intent of hurting Mr. Armstrong. Today we met that burden of raising that doubt. We showed you the conditions. We showed you the carelessness. Let's talk about that. Members of the jury, the death of Rob Armstrong was a tragedy. And it's the consequence of production failing to help him when he needed. And for the entire show to put him in that place where he was exhausted. His body was tired. His mind was tired. But to say that it was Mr. Martin's fault when he played the same game simply does not make sense. At the end of today's trial, right now, I want you to know that Mr. Martin had nothing to do with the death of Robert Armstrong. Look at the conditions, look at the carelessness, and find that consequence, the death of Rob Armstrong. And find Mr. Martin not guilty.
Yes, Your Honor. Members of the jury, defense counsel is telling you a lot about poison not killing Mr. Armstrong. We actually agree. The poison did not kill Mr. Armstrong. It forced him to rip off his mask. It forced him to drown. That's the question today. Did the poison force him to rip off his mask? Then opposing counsel saying, well, no, he ripped off his mask because he was so tired. Members of the jury, Mr. Armstrong wasn't the only competitor on that challenge. Everyone else was fine. No one else drowned. Well, they said, oh, but Mr. Armstrong had extra weight in his backpacks. Who put that weight there? Who was the defendant? The defendant added the weight to the backpack that made him so tired that he drowned. And then they said, well, where were the safety divers? Members of the jury, to be honest with you, I don't know where the safety divers were. I don't know why the show didn't send them in. But if you shoot someone in a hospital because you think the doctors are going to save the person, that's still murder. Doesn't matter if the defendant thought there were safety divers. It matters that the defendant poisoned Mr. Armstrong, knowing that it was fatal, knowing that it was dangerous, but did it anyway. And that's just something that the defense can't contest. Find him guilty. Thank you.
With that, we are done today. So, congratulations. So the next guy's first round of the year.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.